Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with what I'm going to be referring to as Khan's Kast. This is a show where I'm going to be bringing on a podcast type thing where I'm going to be bringing in guests. And with Ratatoskr being essentially the most requested guest for the Third Fleet podcast, and actually pretty much the next person in line to join the Third Fleet podcast, I figured I'd invite you over so that we could have a talk. How are you doing, Ratatoskr?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad I was able to I'm glad I was able to find the time to get you in, because this week has been complete and absolute chaos. And some people are probably going to be confused, and they might be wondering, well, if he was going to be next on Third Fleet Podcast, what are you doing? What is happening with Third Fleet Podcast? Haven't had an episode in ages. I usually talk about this on my stream, but I just want to explain a little bit, guys. What happened with Third Fleet Podcast was, you guys might remember, I convinced Gaijin to play Final Fantasy XIV. And he's still playing Final Fantasy XIV. That's what happened to the Third Fleet podcast. He's barely touched Monster Hunter Sunbreak. And it's just he's most of the time just playing 14, and I don't want to have to harass my friend all the time. Hey, come on, let's go record the podcast. And it's that's pretty much what happened there. But I'll tell you what, when we eventually get back to the Third Fleet podcast, I definitely want to have you over so that you can chat with Gaijin as well.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Actually, it's kind of funny because you're the only Monster Hunter YouTuber really whose videos I look at, or look at any of the streams. I don't spend a lot of the time at watching streams, but I'll occasionally jump into your stream and see what's happening. And one day I went into your stream, and people in the chat, within 2 minutes of me being there, were like, "So when are you going to have Ratatoskr on the Third Fleet podcast?"
Yeah.
Within 2 minutes of me starting watching the stream, it was hilarious. And then you were like you look so exasperated, you look so tired, and you were like,
no, it's
guys, I've told you, I've said this so many times. And then you got distracted by something, and you didn't finish the sentence. I was like, oh wow, what's going on?
No, it's
so I left the stream and I came back maybe an hour later, a long time later. And when I came back, someone gave you a super chat. It's like, hey, what are you going to have Ratatoskr on? Within the same stream. It was amazing. I was like, wow, this man must be exhausted. He must be tired.
The funny thing is, I'm not tired of getting requests from you. It's more I'm not even tired about the thing. It's just, I'm a little bit, the exasperation and all of that is because I really want to record more Third Fleet podcasts, but just I haven't been able to. So it's I'm always yeah, I'd love to do it, but I can't do it right now. And eventually we will get to it again. But in the meantime, I'm I want to keep talking to Monster Hunter content creators, because one of the things that I realized that I just enjoy having conversations about video games as a core part of my content. I have a second channel. I don't know if you're aware, and not shortly, but a while after I started doing Third Fleet podcast, I started working on another podcast in Sleek, because I just like it so much that I just want to have more and more podcasts and shows where I talk to people, because I find that to be an interesting form of media, and it's something that I consume a lot on YouTube. I'll go on YouTube and I'll just listen to two people talk about a subject that I'm either interested in or that I'm just mildly curious about, and I'll just have it playing in the background nonstop while oh yeah, that's an interesting point that they've made, and stuff like that. I dig that a lot.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, because I'm still very much a newcomer into the Monster Hunter community. World was my first title into it, and I've gone back and I've played For Ultimate a lot, somewhat, but I'm still trying to get my bearings as to the opinions. When I came in here, I really didn't know much of anything, or how the community felt. So I got really lucky that anything I said resonated with anybody, really. So I'm in the place right now where I just want to try and figure out, okay, what do people think? What are people's opinions on this thing or that thing? And I'm noticing there's a diverse range of views that are all pretty interesting that I'd like to get a better handle on.
That's an interesting thing, because that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, which is which one was your first Monster Hunter? And you just said that it was World. So what drew you to Monster Hunter World?
Oh, well, I'll have to tell my favorite Monster Hunter story. It's my Nergigante story. So I wasn't really interested in Monster Hunter. I had a friend who was, and he wanted me to play it. He begged me to play it. And so this was before it came out, and there was a demo for Monster Hunter in the PlayStation 4. There was a PlayStation 4 demo thing. And so I go in there and I play this demo. It has Anjanath as the hardest monster. I think it had Great Jagras and maybe Puke Puke, some in between monster.
Yeah.
So I play it. Wasn't interested. Didn't like it at all. You know, my friend was trying to explain to me, look, these weapons have like combos. They're like complicated. This is a difficult game. But I didn't really see any kind of challenge because I would go in there, I'd swing at the monster for 10 minutes with whatever weapon, and then it'd die. And I didn't need to learn any combos. Like, I didn't need to understand anything about the weapon because, you know, what I'm doing is working. So I was like, no, I'm not playing this. I'm very judgmental. Like, I'm very quick to judge games and just drop them because I'm like, I could just go try something else and maybe I'll like the other thing more. But then that demo ended and another beta came out for the game. And this one had Nergigante in it. And my friend was like, look, I like, he just incessantly, like the entire time, just come back and play it and beat Nergigante. And if you still have the same opinion after Nergigante, then I'll stop bothering you. I'll leave you alone. So he was so incessant that I was like, all right, fine. I will go and I'll kill the Nergigante. And the demo Nergigante was an absolute monster. Like, It was a monstrosity. Like, it was a horrible, horrible monster. And it's like, but it got personal, you know? It's like, all right. You're going to be like this. And I have something of I like difficult games. And I have a competitive spirit when it comes to stuff like that. And so I took it personally. I was like, all right. So I would like fight him over and over. And then I'd learn his patterns. But then I'm like, I'm not doing enough damage to kill him. And even if I can survive like the 30-minute time limit or the 15-minute time limit, whatever it was, I can't do enough damage to beat him. So I was forced into a position to beat this monster. I really needed to understand my weapon. So I like joined a multiplayer lobby.
What weapon was it at the time, if I might ask?
I started with longsword.
Ah, God, the disappointment. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. But keep going.
So I would join multiplayer lobbies and I'd see people using the longsword and I'd see them using foresight slash sometimes. And then like helm breakers, like, I wonder how you do that. So I just really started messing with it. And I was like, this is incredibly complex. To do the kind of damage necessary to beat this Nergigante, I'm really going to have to understand this mechanics. And like, I got really mesmerized by the interplay between having to understand your weapon and having to have a good enough understanding of the monster's moveset, and then put those two knowledges together so that you can take advantage of those opportunities with the combos that your weapon has, with the damage output that your weapon can do. And so I finally beat it. Like, I did it. And by the time that I beat it, I was like, okay, yeah, I need to play this game. I need to play Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm sure that most hunters out there will have a story that is somewhat similar to that, where a friend will have told them about the game and they're like, okay, I guess I'll try it since you said. Like, with me, it was the same thing. There was a friend of mine who was super addicted to Monster Hunter. He told me to get Monster Hunter try, and I hated it. I was like, this game is terrible. The controls are terrible. I hate this game. And eventually, much later on, because my friend did not have a Wii, so we couldn't play together. It was just me trying to figure it out by myself. I think I did get to Lagiacrus or something, like, because I did play it a chunk, but I didn't like it. And then because the core loop never resonated with me. I'm a guy that is all about the levels, right? You go through a level, you kill the small monsters or the small enemies or whatever, and then there's a boss fight. That was my understanding of like the third-person action type game, and that was all I really wanted to do. I just want to go through levels. Like, this is not a level, it's a map, and it's always the same map, same thing every time. Every time it's the same damn thing. So eventually I did play with my friend in Freedom Unite because he had like a PSP and I had a Vita, so I bought Freedom Unite. And that is when I understood the whole thing about, no, you hunt, and then you get resources, and then you upgrade your weapons, and then you hunt more, and you keep going and going. And say, oh, now I get it. And it was funny because when I chose my weapon, like, most important thing is you got to choose your weapon. This is whenever somebody asks me, like, what's the most important thing for me to do to get started in Monster Hunter? You go to the training area, you use all of the weapons and figure out which one you like the most. Like, that's the most important thing. So my friend was showing me the weapons, and I was like, oh, Gunlance. I like that. That sounds fun. And he's like, no, you don't want that. That weapon sucks. Like, even my friend that got me into the game is like, you don't want to play that weapon. That weapon's terrible. But I still ended up playing the Gunlance forever. It is what it is. So you played World, And that pretty much just kind of like resonated with you. You only tried the longsword? Did you use other weapons? Like, how did that went about?
Well, I started with like dual blades and a bunch of other stuff, but the longsword's counter, like this foresight slash. See, the thing is, the foresight slash in the original Monster Hunter world when it first came out was not as easy to pull off as it was later on. They nerfed it. No, sorry, they buffed it by a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, they buffed it by a significant amount, and it gave it more angles, so you could twist the turn a little bit towards the end. Like at first, you were just kind of, once you did it, you were stuck going in that same direction pretty much. You couldn't do that 45-degree turn to it, which was a huge buff by itself. But then a lot of it was buffed. So at the time, I had the habit of like going into multiplayer lobbies on PlayStation communities and getting into chats with people, and like nobody that I talked to was using the foresight slash at all. I guess they were like veteran players and they just weren't used to it. They didn't like it, and so it just felt so good to get a foresight slash off, because at the time it was much harder than it later turned out to be. It gave me a big dopamine hit.
Did you ever see the video that there was a guy that I saw a video that he made back still in the early days of Monster Hunter World, and this was him basically foresight slashing like every single attack that you could on every single monster or something like that. And I was like, that is wild. Dude was just like, even like the Nergigante dive bomb is like, I'll foresight slash. That's like not a problem with the tighter foresight slash, which was not easy.
Yeah, I loved it. It felt amazing. Yeah. Getting a well-timed Helmbreaker. The Helmbreakers of today, like I feel like an old man talking about the World Helmbreaker. The World Helmbreaker took timing. It was a long time. You would like crawl up the monster and like just hang in midair for a long time and then go back down. And then someone with a hammer would like ruin your Helmbreaker because they'd like hit you right before it.
Okay.
Or a charge blade.
Are you really going to complain about hammer users right now?
Yes.
You're a longsword user, probably slashing at the head, tripping hammer users worldwide, and then you're going to complain about getting launched? Come on now.
Yes, at least on my Helmbreaker, you see me up there. You see me doing my big move.
Time.
I'm having that's the best time. Yeah. Actually, we should probably get your audience angry at me. That's always fun.
Yes.
And talk about flinch free. Like we should talk about flinch free. Let's get into the flinch free.
Let me tell you something. I actually have builds currently in Sunbreak where I kid you not, I do not have a spot to put flinch free in. I'm not joking.
Like no room at all. Yeah, the Gunlance does need a lot of slots actually, so that's not that surprising. But the thing with flinch free is that I kind of I went back and I played for Ultimate after I got done with World and with I played Generations Ultimate a little bit, but I played for Ultimate more, and I did some multiplayer in for Ultimate, and I noticed like the flinching was a lot worse.
Yeah,
like,
there's no
then.
flinch free. I think that initially a lot of people were upset at longsword users because probably a lot of people weren't even aware of the skill flinch free.
Right. Well, it's not even just that it wasn't flinch free. I feel that in Rise, in fact, I'm pretty sure that in Rise, most attacks have like a soft hyper armor. Like if you're doing an attack, you won't get interrupted during that.
Depends
that
on the weapon. Like for instance,
Yes.
have you ever played Lance?
No, I've never played Lance.
So let me tell you, Lance gets tripped by literally everything. Like if an Azuchi sneezes like on a different map, the Lance user gets tripped. I'm not even exaggerating. Like Lance gets tripped by literally everything, which is weird because you'd figure like it's a super bulky, slow moving weapon with the biggest shield in the game. How's it getting tripped by literally everything? Like dual blades don't get tripped because they have like demon mode and whatnot. Like most of the weapons don't get that much tripping, but like I seem to remember from the weapons that I play, the most egregious ones are Lance and Sword and Shield. Like Lance and Sword and Shield are terrible. They get tripped by everything.
So I think you're right. Longsword has like most of its spirit slash attacks are also have that hyper armor that most small attacks won't interrupt them. So that's another reason people don't like longsword users. But it's okay because I switched to Insectglaive. I don't have to worry about those mean comments about longsword users anymore.
It's like the funny thing is it doesn't bother me that much. Like the whole longsword thing is kind of a little bit of a meme because the thing was I just every now and then I would bring up that I feel like longsword is really, really powerful. maybe too
Yeah.
powerful. That's not a fault of longsword users. That's the fault of Capcom because they didn't do proper balancing to the weapon. Like, especially even during early Rise, early and even end Rise, longsword was overpowered. Like, I even made video stuff. Yeah, of course, our interaction on Twitter and all that. It was really, really powerful. So I'll just bring that up, but it's like, that's it. The problem is that then people will try to have an argument with me, and I'm that guy that is like, if you have an argument with me on stream, I will engage with it. I'm not going to be someone that's like, oh, you're annoying me, I'm going to ban you. No, I'm going to engage with the thing, and sometimes I'll make it entertaining. Sometimes I'll try to have a more serious discussion, right? But that's where the meme comes from. People keep challenging me saying, oh, it's not that powerful. And then I have to show them, yes, it is. And I don't even play this weapon, right? That's the only thing. Because I think that, as a matter of fact, like I always tell people, you should play whatever weapon you want to play, which is why I specifically gave you an out. When you said the thing, I was like, I'm going to do it. But in the video, I gave you an out. I was like, you don't have to stop playing longsword because I did this. Because I always feel like the most important thing is people having fun with their weapon. I don't actually care that much if people play longsword or not. But I play into the meme because it's funny.
Right. Well, I was looking for an out anyway. Like the thing is, Rise longsword really was overpowered. Like it just way too overpowered. And I wasn't having fun, using it anymore. It was too easy. And like, I don't know if you know, but like I've been very critical of Rise since. Of
course I know. I watched some of your videos. I remember specifically the one where you took like one of the things that I wrote in like a community post and you put it up on your video, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Because that's one of the things that I always tell people. I love consuming content that disagrees with me because I always like having my viewpoints tested, right? Because I want to see if somebody can convince me that I'm wrong. But it's like usually what ends up happening, I mean, sometimes I will be wrong about something, but usually what ends up happening is like, okay, I can see this viewpoint. I still think this way, but I can see this viewpoint. And I always think that it's important for people to entertain different viewpoints in order to, educate themselves better and know the other side of the situation. At least that's the way that I try to do things. But yeah, I did see that video, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, for me, the important point isn't that to convince people. It's more like to explain my side of what's going on. It's more like, okay, so in the example of the Rise video and the poll that you put out a poll that asked people how they felt about Rise, and your community, your channel at that point was very positive about Rise, and has continuously been very positive about Rise. But at that point, that was still within what I would consider the honeymoon phase. People weren't saying very much negative about Rise at that time, and still the poll came out, and your community should bias them towards being positive. And still, that poll came out with something like 20% or something like that, some significant number being unsatisfied with Rise. So that's telling. Like that says something. It doesn't necessarily mean that Rise is a bad game, and I don't think Rise is a bad game. As anybody that watches my videos knows, I like Rise. I like Sunbreak. I especially like Sunbreak. I think Sunbreak fixed a lot that Rise that I complained about in my initial Rise video.
Let me just give you a little bit more context. So
sure,
because you started with World, I don't know how much you looked into the community during like the launch of World and all of that stuff. But there was also, at least to me, I felt like, because I did play the older games. I didn't play them nearly as much as I played World because ultimately, as a content creator, I always need to be like my main games need to be something that I can kind of create content around, right? Because otherwise it becomes very hard for you to justify the amount of time that you're investing. Because I do this full time, right? So it becomes very hard to justify the amount of time that I'm investing into a game if I'm not creating content around it. So I always created content around Monster Hunter, but it was never like super serious because the games would come out 1 year in advance in Japan. And then people who were able to speak Japanese or somehow play the game in Japanese, which I never wanted to do because I was like, okay, I'm not going to, the game is complex enough as it is. I'm not going to be able to understand a damn thing. It's going to be wild, right? But some people would do that, and they would do content like Gaijin, for instance, but Gaijin actually knows how to speak Japanese. But there were other creators like Eric's. He would just play the games in Japanese as well sometimes, and he would make videos in Japanese and stuff, and I'm like, I can't do that. So my investment in Monster Hunter was always to a much lesser degree because I would be mostly focusing on Soul stuff and whatnot. But when World came out, there was a significant amount of people that they didn't consider World to be a proper Monster Hunter game. right? They were like, oh, this is not the Monster Hunter we know, because the combat was much more fluid. Now that you have that context of 4U and stuff, the combat is way more fluid than what people call the clunky old combat. Even though some people might call it clunky, but like the veterans of the game, they'll be able to make that game dance to their tune and like predict every head flinch, predict every stun, predict all of that. Like I can't do that. I don't play at that level on either of the games. But yeah, just to say that, there's people that didn't like Rise, but there was also a lot of people that didn't like World either. And I think that both of us would agree that World and Iceborne was fantastic freaking game, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So here's the thing. Like you said, I come from a new perspective. World and Iceborne were my first Monster Hunter games. And at the time, I had barely just played a little bit of Generations Ultimate to get a feel for, like, not far at all, like just to get a feel for what old Monster Hunter was like. And then I played Rise. So the problem is that even from the perspective of someone that came in World and Iceborne, I felt like, well, what is this? Like, this is like, if you look back at my Nergigante story, the thing that got me interested in Monster Hunter was kind of the challenge, the interplay between different things. And what got me not interested initially, the reason I wasn't interested initially, was that I couldn't notice that interplay because the monsters weren't challenging enough to force me to engage with mechanics that the game had. And then I go to Rise, and I see how I like to take my time with games. Like, I play slowly. I do all the village quests at what I feel is like an appropriate time. Like, I do them all the first time, so that it takes longer. If I level up and get a bunch of high level armor and then go back to them, it'd ruin it for me. So I do things slowly. When I go to the hub area, like, I'll only do monsters that I have so far seen in the I go slowly. It still went by pretty quickly, and the village quests were so easy. Yeah. Like, it was so much easier than Monster Hunter World village quests. So much easier than anything in 4 Ultimate. 4 Ultimate, like, beat me. like I was questioning whether I was good at these games at all. Like, I was like, Jesus, like, this is very difficult and unintuitive. So it made me want to explore more. But we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. The point was that even from World to Rise, it's like, if I had played Rise first, I thought to myself, I don't think I would have gotten into the series. I wouldn't have been able to realize how magical it is, because the only challenge that exists in Rise happens way down, like in towards the end of the game's life cycle. And in fact, like, the hardest stuff in it happens like at the very end. Like, people will say, well, Valstrax was hard. Okay, but Valstrax wasn't in the game. Like the Thunderlords and Ogre was hard. Yeah, but he wasn't in the game at the time of release. In fact, even the title updates weren't out. In the initial base Monster Hunter Rise, there was very little that I think even new players would find challenging. They might find it challenging to, like, understand their weapons, but I feel like if I had tried it first, I would not have felt compelled to understand my weapons, because
you didn't have to.
I didn't have
for base Rise. Yeah, you didn't have to.
I'd never played the Sword and Shield, like, at all. And then I was like, well, just to prove my point, let me try and fight a Kushala Daora during base Rise, and without a build, no build. I'll just not slot anything in. Just pick out some random armor, or actually armor that I'm using for my longsword build, and not change anything. Get a random sword and shield that I don't know what's good, don't know what's meta, don't know how to use it, and then I beat it in like 12 minutes. Without ever worrying about carding. It was sad. It was kind of sad. So for me, like, it felt like, even from going from World to Rise, it's like I started to feel how a lot of those old Monster Hunter veterans feel. It's like, oh my God, the series is slipping away from me. It's like it's turning into something that I don't want it to be, even from one thing to the next. And I feel like a lot of World babies, a lot of people that came in World were feeling like that towards Rise.
Yep, there was definitely that feeling. At least I felt that in the community. So one of the things that I've noticed was that, due to the fact that I was playing Gunlance, and Gunlance was terrible in everything except moveset. So, like, the moveset, it was the best moveset I had ever seen for the Gunlance. It was amazing. You got, wait, did we have Blast? Yeah, we did get Blast Dash and Rise. Yes, we did get, Jesus, I was getting confused. Yeah, we got Blast Dash. We got, like, friggin' aerial shelling, which we had seen aerial shelling before. It was like, It was cooler, and that there's all of these crazy things that you can do in all of these different playstyles. And I'm experimenting with everything. The one thing the Gunlance doesn't have is damage. So I didn't feel that the game was. I mean, I felt that it was definitely easier than World. I could instantly tell, like, yeah, this is way easier. Particularly the village quests. There's no challenge whatsoever to be had in village because the monsters barely have enough HP to survive the hunter, let alone anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So you burn through village, then you get through the high rank stuff and whatnot, and even there, like, you'd find very little challenge when it came to Rise. So it was like, okay, whatever. But there was still a little bit something there. But you know, Super Rad experienced kind of like the same thing you did because he played with the longsword, and I seem to remember he also made a video saying like, "Hey, this is fun, but like this is way too easy." And yeah, because the longsword will just like decimate everything with Helmbreaker. Right. It's not even remotely challenging in any way. So eventually when they added the title updates, I felt like, okay, there's a couple of more challenging things here. But even then, because by then I had realized, okay, so the Gunlance is kind of, you know, weak. So I started playing like Sword and Shield, and that made things way easier because I also play Sword and Shield. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty easy. So that was also one of my complaints. But then they eventually introduced like the advanced apexes, so the supercharged apexes, and that's when there was some challenge to be had in the game. So that was when things got a little bit more interesting from that aspect. But at the time, you know, I was also busy doing like weapon guides and whatnot, so I wasn't overly concerned about the difficulty of the game because I was constantly learning a new weapon to do the base guides for it. So, you know, I guess I didn't feel the burnout as much because I also look for challenges on most of the games that I play. Like, for instance, right now I'm trying to grind the anomaly research level to rank 100 so that I get like the most cursed quest imaginable that has like 3 crazy monsters and whatnot. And then I want to go do that, and I want to see how fun that's going to be. Right. But in Rise, there was clearly nothing nearly as challenging as the stuff that we have now with anomalies and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Right. And people will, like, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, and people will say, well, World was also super easy. And some people will even make the outlandish claim that World was easier than Rise. First of all, I don't think that's true. I think I could probably prove it on a technical number, like a level by comparing numbers. Jacob, which you had on your third week podcast at one point, made a numbers comparison for HP for the different monsters and how much damage that they do to a hunter over different games. And he found that they didn't do significantly more damage, and they didn't do significantly more damage to the hunter throughout. And if you compare how much extra stuff and how much more damage you can output in a hunt, like in a DPS situation, the hunters were much, much stronger, obviously, in Rise than they've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
So if the monsters aren't doing any more damage than they used to, and the hunters are doing way, way more damage than they used to, and have way more ways of getting out of sticky situations with the wirefall and everything, then clearly, like, I just don't think it holds water that Rise is easier than World. But even apart from that, I felt like World had...
Wait, I think you made a mistake there. It doesn't hold water that Rise is easier than World?
Sorry. It doesn't hold water than World is easier than Rise. You're correct. Right. But even outside of that, I felt like World had... My biggest complaint really isn't even that there isn't anything hard in Rise, because like I said, there is some difficult stuff. Like Teostra gave me, it was the first time I triple carded to something in Rise. When he first came out, I felt he was a really strong monster. In fact, I wouldn't even say there's anything wrong with the moveset of the monsters. Like the Rathalos was fairly tough. I liked his moveset. He gave him a glow up. He was a strong fight. It's just that with all the stuff that you have, I just didn't see myself carding to him at the time.
It's like an interesting thing is a lot of times people would ask me when I was streaming Rise, if you could change one thing in Rise, what would you change? And my answer would sometimes throw people off. It's like, I would remove wirefall. I wouldn't remove wire bugs, just wirefall. You can't wirefall. You have to deal with the situation some other way, because I feel that wirefall is incredibly overpowered. Sometimes some monsters are able to punish you with it, but most of the times you can wirefall through so much that it does feel like you're incredibly overpowered.
Yeah. So as I was saying, like, the challenge really comes towards the end of it. It's backloaded. And in World, I felt like it wasn't so much backloaded. There was a lot of interesting little walls along the way to the end game. Whereas in Rise, all the difficulty was in the end game. I still remember people in like forums and boards and community posts were like, help me with this pink Rathian. Like, this pink Rathian's really messing me up. Help me with this double tempered basil quest. I can't get through it. Help me with the first tempered Kieran quest at Hunter rank 49 or something like that. Yeah. And people were not prepared for those things. I saw people getting one shot by the basil. I saw people getting one shot by the Kieran. People were, even the low level Anjanath was a minor wall for people to get used to stuff. And I just never felt any of that. And that's even taking into consideration how, okay, now I know how to play the game. Even taking that into consideration, I still struggle with Anjanath more than, like World Anjanath, more than I did with endgame Rise things.
Yeah. It's just I find that it's the mobility of it. The mobility of your hunter is just so jacked up. I've talked about this a lot, how I hope that the next Monster Hunter slows things down so that you can kind of have two distinct Monster Hunter branches, so to speak, where you have like, okay, here's the handheld, which is more actiony, more Devil May Cry, all of that. And then here's like the regular console / PC releases that should be more, traditional. I actually even wanted stuff to go slower than Monster Hunter World, because one of the things that I realized is, like, when I started World, I'm like, oh, there's tons and tons of convenience, right? We have all of this convenience. We go in. Oh, we forgot to eat. No problem. You can eat right here at your tent. Oh, I forgot to bring this material. No problem. Your entire inventory is right here in this tent. Oh, I forgot I have the wrong weapon. No problem. Go into the tent, swap to a different loadout. I find that eventually, initially, this is fine. I don't mind, whatever, because I was never really like a super veteran Monster Hunter player. I played it, but it was whatever. But what I found near the end of Monster Hunter World Iceborne, particularly, I was like, man, I actually miss the times when you had to prepare before you actually launched the quest. I found that to be much more engaging in the older titles, where you'd actually, okay, I need to figure out what are the materials that I'm going to be taking with me on this quest. Or are things like, oh, you forgot your hot potions? Okay, you got two choices. You either go look for the materials to craft them, or you got to go back and you got to get them and you got to come back to the quest. And it sets a more disciplined tone to everything, right? And that was something that I started missing. And then with Rise, just like tripling down on everything and even removing hot and cold potions, I was like, whoa, I do not agree with that at all. Like, I'm actually curious, where do you land on the hot and cold potions situation?
I landed in an interesting place. So naturally, being a world person, like everybody wanted me to be like, world is peak, and everything that came before it, whatever. Like, but I actually played 4 Ultimate, and I fell in love with 4 Ultimate like really badly. Because in the early parts of 4 Ultimate, there was almost none of that convenience. You had no honey. Like, there was no honey. I couldn't make mega potions. And so I was like, I have to crawl around in the dirt, like getting this stupid honey, like for a good bit of low rank. Like a third of low rank consisted of me not having access to honey. Something like that, a third, 25%. And so, like, it changed the dynamic of everything. I started, like, looking around, like, caring about what the maps look like. So, like, because I'm a Forest Explorer, I know where this honey is. I know where this honey is. Picking it up, and I didn't want to waste more time on honey, so I would use the stuff in the box. In World, I didn't even know there was stuff in the box, like, until, like, Iceborne. It wasn't until, like, Iceborne that I realized, oh my god, there's, like, free things here in the box, because we were always just flooded with materials. The convenience started very early on in World. And so, like, I started liking the maps. Like, I started fishing and stuff in 4 Ultimate. I started doing all this, like, random stuff that made me immersed in the world. And I realized that flash pods and dung pods, like, they're super important. In Rise, a monster comes by, you have 2 monsters fighting each other. It's only a benefit. Like, oh, great, there's another monster here. In 4 Ultimate, oh my god, there's another monster here. It completely changes the tone. And because I wasn't used to that old clunky fighting style back then, I just sucked. Like, I just sucked. I was having the time of my life playing through 4 Ultimate. And so it's like, oh, I get it now. There's something about this old games that the new games seem to have less of. And that's why all these old Monster Hunter people are complaining. Yes. I get it. They keep complaining and complaining. There is something here that's valuable that's missing from games like World and Rise that I don't even think necessarily has to be missing. Like you could make Rise World. I felt had a little bit of that. Rise less so, but it's almost a tragedy really, because it's like there's this pre-preparation aspect to Monster Hunter that has always been an essential part of the game. Even in World is semi-essential, but it's been diluted less and less to focus more on the very fun gameplay and the getting you right back into the loop, which I feel maybe they should go back to. They should revisit some of this pre-preparation aspect mechanics in Monster Hunter 6.
Yeah, for sure. So you also would prefer to have like the hot and cold potions, basically. Yeah.
For sure.
And here's the interesting part of it is that a lot of people don't understand because they just see it as an inconvenience, because like, oh, I have to use this potion, and then if the potion runs out, I have to think about the thing when I'm gonna have the time to use it again, or I have to go hunt for materials. But one of the things that you end up losing, and I find that gamers nowadays value this less and less, is the immersion. Like, there's a reason you're drinking a cold potion. It's because the place that you're in, there's literally lava in it. Have you ever been next to lava? It's pretty hot. So you need something to counterbalance that. And I find that to just be like an immersion thing. Immersion is one of the things that I really love about video games. And it's very hard to get immersed in something like Rise, where I can run through the whole map in, like 10 seconds, not even using a dog. You run through the whole map just like web slinging, like Spider-Man. And the game is still extremely fun. I still love the game, but I'm not nearly as immersed when I jump into a map in Rise versus when I jumped into a map in World. Like I could still go get lost in the ancient forest. A lot of people will still get lost in the ancient forest because it's massive and there's a lot of detail and it's intricate. But the interesting thing that I see is that a lot of players will say, oh, I hated the ancient forest. I would get lost in there all the time. And I'm like, yes, that's a feature.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. People will say things like it's an inconvenience. It's like, yeah, okay, but that's the point. Inconveniences are a gameplay mechanic. They're a development tool to get you in a certain kind of mood, to get you in a certain kind of atmosphere. If the only thing that you care about in Monster Hunter is just the action parts of it, just the fighting the monster and getting good DPS times and like clearing the monster, and that's the only thing you care about it, then there are other things out there that are like that. Like people make fun of Rise these days. They call it like Monster May Cry because it's so much like Devil May Cry that it's becoming more and more of an action game and less of a hunting game, like less and less pre-preparation aspect. And I'll even say this. You mentioned this earlier, and I thought this was a great point. You said how there should be like a mainline kind of thing and a portable thing. My understanding from going into and talking to the community now is that that's always been the case, kind of. So they've had a mainline series that takes things a step back and is slower and more grounded, and then they'll do a portable series that is more focused on the actiony stuff. So Generation Ultimates was a portable game. They had all these styles. It focuses less on the immersion and more on the action. Let's go. Let's do all this cool, crazy stuff. Let's experiment. And Rise seems to be in the same vein. It seems to be like a portable fifth. The fifth portable game. Wire bugs, all kinds of cool, crazy stuff. Palamutes, let's zoom you right around. And people will get upset at me when I say, like, look, there's this stuff in 4 Ultimate that's really cool that I feel like we should look into putting into 6. And they'll say something like, this is just how Monster Hunter has always been. Yeah, but I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that they would, like, go to a portable game and then tone it down for the next mainline series. It's not like Capcom didn't market like that. It's
not like there's a hard formula for it either, right? It's like because you go from 3 Ultimate to 4 Ultimate. There's no, at least that I'm trying to draw to see if there's nothing in between from like 3 to 4. They're just both mainline entries. Then suddenly there's Generations, and that's an experimental title. It's not like there's a very strict pattern. You go from Monster Hunter 1 to DOS. And it's like, these are very different games. And then you go to Try, also very different. So there's always been experimentation. It's not like we know for a fact that, oh yeah, the next Monster Hunter is definitely going to be slower. Like, I don't know this. I
That's a good
hope it
point.
is, but I don't
That's a
know.
good point.
A lot of people seem to they take this for granted, but we actually don't know.
The only thing that gives me a little bit of hope for a bit of a slowdown, and I want people to understand that if they're listening to the podcast, that I don't hate like fast gameplay and stuff. It's just that if you're going to give me like super fast, cool, actiony gameplay in Rise and have less of a grounded experience and less slow and detailed, then you should also kind of make it difficult, because I don't feel very accomplished when I'm just bullying the monster. It's fine if you want to have this super fast gameplay and have this kind of game that's not focused on some of the stuff that the older Monster Hunters were focused. But then you're going to go and also make it easy? Like, come on. Like, I'm bullying the monster. It's the real reason that I got off of the longsword. I felt bad. Although actually that kind of backfired because the insect glaive aerial style thing that is so easy, it's a joke. It's way easier than the longsword.
I don't know how it is right now with the new abilities and stuff because I haven't played it too much. But like aerial glaive has always been extremely comfortable. You can just like slash around and like do the wyvern bomb thing. Now you have the charge forward thing that I don't even know how that works all that well. But yeah, it's always been very comfortable.
It works really well. I'll say that. It does a lot of damage. It works really well. You can comfortably linger outside. It's fast. It activates fast and it charges your diving wyvern. And you're constantly like hovering around the monster looking for openings. You could like pop, 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 diving wyvern. Easy. It's the easiest it's ever been.
And you get free earplugs. That must be nice.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so Rise was, it was like we were talking about, it's like, sure, it's a fine game, it's all that, but it was definitely much easier than the stuff that came before it. Then you went on to Sunbreak, and Sunbreak kind of changed your mind a little bit because I feel like you've also became more accepting of the nature of what they were shooting for, right? With, okay, this is just going to be a more actiony game, and they dialed it even higher. It's like it's dialed up all the way to 11 now with the action element, and how fast and all the things that your hunter can do. But I feel like it's definitely much more balanced this time around. There is a little bit more challenge there.
Yeah, I agree. Well, the thing with Sunbreak, mostly the reason my opinion changed so much was I understood what they were going for better.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I came in expecting kind of World 2, like World, but in a portable Switch game. So I understood like limitations of the Switch hardware, but I came expecting World type gameplay. And it took me a while to realize that's not what they were going for. Like they weren't really trying to make World 2, they were trying to make Rise. And I'm very respectful of developer intent. If that's what they're trying to do and people are enjoying that, then I can just like shift my thinking and learn to enjoy that. And that's what I've done so far. So yeah, I think Sunbreak's a great addition. And Rise was never a bad game anyway. I just had some nitpicks.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good to see that at least you kind of came around on Sunbreak. So that's good. It's nice to hear that at least. But I'm assuming that in terms of the next one, I mean, we kind of brought it up already, but you also not just expected, you kind of want it to also be slower.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I do want it to be slower, but that's a given. Like, I think that it almost seems like impossible that it could be faster. Like, what could they do to make it any faster? Like, so I think it's a given that they'll try and slow things down a bit. The more interesting point is that I've noticed, well, you had Jacob on your podcast. I didn't watch the episode with him, but I've talked to Jacob a lot, and it's made me realize it isn't just the gameplay mechanics that some of the old veterans want. It's not just the toned downness and the slow mechanics. It's also like it's an atmosphere thing that they're looking for, and Rise just doesn't have that at all. Like World had a little bit, but 4 Ultimate did a much better job of whatever it is that they're talking about. If anything, they're obsessed. Like they want Monster Hunter 2 levels of fear. They want monsters to be intimidating. They want it to have like not necessarily a good story, but a cohesive theme that centers around producing a kind of atmosphere of you're nobody. Like you're this hunter and you're going out into this dangerous world full of dangerous like dinosaur animals. And you have to crawl your way up there. And they wanted to not just be hard gameplay wise. They want the tone to reflect that. And so like Jacob hates stuff like the Rampage, not just because it's easy and boring like me. I don't like it because it's easy and boring.
There's a ton of monsters in it, right? It's weird.
Yeah. And they're not challenges. They're not threats.
Yeah.
There's a tonal dissonance between the cutscenes that say, "Oh my God, the rampage is so scary; they're about to destroy the village," and then what's actually happening with like Yomogi, like having fun and laughing and like blowing monsters away with her Gatling gun, and then Magnamala supposedly had destroyed the village by himself, but then you see Elder Fugan like just destroy a Magnamalo and then 3 other monsters. It's whack-a-mole. It takes something away from the monster's intimidationness to see that. So having played for you, and the Gormagala thing in low rank was really well done. Like it felt like a threat. First of all, it like beat me up in gameplay like really badly. I was really scared of the Gormagala. It made me like stop and go get new armor. That's really what I want. Like what I want from my Monster Hunter games is to force me to stop and make me accept, it's going to take too long to try and brute force this. I can't brute force this, or if I can, it would be much too difficult. Force me to stop, change my tactics, make me go put on a different set of armor with resistances to whatever the monster's doing. Make me do something. That's what I'm looking for.
That was
Hunter.
definitely something that, at least back in the day when I was playing Freedom Unite, that was definitely something that I felt compelled to. So like I remember before going after a Kezu, because like I had no idea how to fight a Kezu, and Kezu would just like obliterate me and completely destroy me in more ways than one. And so my friend was like, "Oh no, we got to go get like Gipsaros armor." And there's a logic behind all of that, because Gipsaros, you know what Gipsaros is, right? You've seen?
Yeah.
So he isn't for you, right? Yeah, I think he is. So you'd go and you fight the Gipsaros because Gipsaros has a rubbery hide. Rubber counters electricity. Like everything makes a certain sense, which that's kind of like what really brings you in. And of course, when a friend of yours takes you to hunt Gipsaros, he always has to let you at least get hit by once by the fake death attack, which my friend clearly told. He's like, "Oh yeah, we did it. Good job." And then I go in there to carve, and it's like, "Oh, the carve's not working." And then he stands up, and I was like, "Wait, what? What's going on?" That was really cool. But yeah, those little surprises are friggin' awesome.
And you just mentioned something like great, because you're right. It has a rubbery hide, and you go and you get it to take out this much harder thing that was a wall for you. So the gameplay is synthesizing itself with the story. Like the gameplay is a story in Monster Hunter. So stuff like that, I love that. I often talk about Bloodborne, because Bloodborne has some of the best atmosphere that any game has. And one of the reasons that its atmosphere is so good is because the gameplay reflects it. So you get taken to Yahar Ghul in Bloodborne. The first time you get put in a sack, you get sent there.
Yahar Ghul is the jail, so it's...
Yes.
Yeah.
The jail, Hypogean jail. The first time, before it gets all weird. And there's stuff that people are singing in the background. There's no music in Bloodborne. There's no music in Souls games. But there's music here. There's people chanting out, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, is there like actual people somewhere chanting? Is that why the music is like this?" And then it's so inhospitable atmospherically, but it's also inhospitable gameplay wise.
Because the monsters are higher level, yeah.
Yes, it's hard. It's hard. So you're not just scared because it's a scary, it's just because the game's telling you it's spooky and scary. You're scared because it's scary. Like it's actually scary, not just that it's telling you to be scared. It's not a cutscene with the rampage telling you to be scared of the rampage. It would be better if the rampage made me scared instead of someone telling me to be scared.
Yeah, exactly. I completely get that. And it's an interesting thing that you brought up Souls, because I also definitely want to talk to you about Souls, because you've made a ton of content about Elden Ring. And I'm curious, like, what was your first Souls game?
Demon Souls.
Oh,
back in the day.
Wow. On PlayStation 3?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. So how did you get hooked on Demon Souls?
The same way that
was it
everyone
a friend?
has the same... No, it's just the same story as Monster Hunter. I feel like Souls and Monster Hunters always have the same story. You pick it up, you don't like it, you put it down in disgust, and then something lures you back in, and then it becomes one of your favorite series. It's the same story for both. I've had so many people tell me the same thing. I know that it happened to you. I believe it happened to Gaijin. There's a lot of content creators that have said that.
It happened to me in Monster Hunter. It definitely didn't happen to me in Demon Souls. Like, Demon Souls clicked for me the moment I saw it. Like, I saw a friend of mine play it. At the time, I didn't even have a PlayStation, because I was mostly like gaming on PC, and I think I had a Wii at the time as well. But eventually I was like, no, I want to buy a console because there are certain games that are only on console and I want to play them. And, I had to make a decision to either buy an Xbox 360 or I buy a PlayStation 3. One of the reasons I bought the PlayStation 3 is because the same friend that got me into Monster Hunter had shown me how Demon Souls kind of was. And so I was like, okay, so I like Demon Souls, I like God of War, I like Wipeout, I'm buying a PlayStation. And so when I started playing Demon Souls, it instantly clicked. Like, I loved it. Like, monsters were killing me, but the thing about Demon Souls was that every single time that I died, and this was something very rare for me in gaming at the time, like, very rarely would I be going through a game and I would die to something, and I'd be like, no, that was my fault. I messed up. See, if I had done it differently, it felt fair. Every single death that you would have in that game would feel fair. Except for like the scripted ones, of course, because there's a couple of scripted deaths and whatnot. But like most of the other ones, you're like, no, that was fair. I messed up. I could have blocked. I could have done this. Some enemy came from behind or whatever, and I wasn't paying attention. It felt fair. And that to me was like the most satisfying thing. At the time, I didn't even know that Demon Souls was like considered this super hard and penetrable game. I was just like, hey, I'm fighting monsters. It feels good. The combat is reasonably simple because you block with one hand, you attack with the other. It's whatever, you equip weapons, things just kind of work, and it feels fair. So I would always keep going, and it would always kept feeling fair. So I finished the game and then started a new character to play with my friend because we were playing together. But I was like, nope, I'm addicted. Screw you. It's over.
You have a good friend. He has great taste. Introduced you to Monster Hunter, introduced you to Demon Souls. Good stuff.
Exactly.
Actually, I'm kind of the same way because like I kind of owe my friend my channel because like the same guy that introduced me to Monster Hunter introduced me to Outward, which was the first game that I made any videos about.
Oh,
so like
Outward. I know one of the developers of that game. I mean, not in real life, but I knew him through the internet because he was, at one point I was working with an MCN, a multi-channel network, and he was trying to promote a ship game that he had made, like a PvP ship game. And so I remember interviewing him about that game and whatnot, and I made some videos about it, whatever. And then later he came out with Outward, and he just gave me a code. And he's a really cool guy, like Guillaume
Boucher.
Yeah. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's great. I looked at a lot of his interviews. He's a very impressive individual. I kind of got obsessed with him looking at how he built his company and made this game. Outward gave me like weird feelings. Like it really was playing an older. I was destined to like old school Monster Hunter because like Outward was a game that like was heavily about crafting and it had survival elements to accentuate fun RPG gameplay. So it's like if you take something like Demon Souls and then you give it like skills and then also add some crafting elements and survival elements, but just for flavor. Like it's not there to like kill you or make it hard. It's just for immersion and to slow you down, to make the actual process of journeying enjoyable. So I was like, this is wonderful. Like this is a game that's like about its creative vision. And so I made that video about Outward, and Nine Dots commented on that video. It's the first video I had ever made, and told me, good job, this is this great video. So that's what motivated me to keep going. So I really owe my friend that got me into these games like a lot for pretty much kickstarting my channel.
I ended up never finishing Outward because I was always pressured to keep making more content, and Outward wasn't taking off as much as the rest of my stuff, so you always have to make that tough decision. But I actually loved playing the game. I just ended up not having as much time as I wanted to dedicate to it. But the interesting thing is, so he sent me a code to PC, but I always like having like physical media. So I later went and I straight up just bought the game, and I haven't even put the disc in. I just bought it because I like the game so much that I was like, I need to own this like on a console or something, because you can't have like physical media on PC or whatever. But I loved like you were saying, it has those survival elements, but it's not beating you over the head with it. Like, for instance, if you think of something like Don't Starve, right? I wanted to kind of like Don't Starve when it came out. I'm not sure if you ever played it.
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah, so I wanted to like it, but the amount of like gauges that you have to manage. It's like, okay, so there's the hunger gauge, there's the thirst gauge, there's the how well you are feeling gauge. There's your health gauge. There's your mental health gauge. Because I was like, okay, I found a way to sustain myself with food and water, and it's kind of like, things are kind of stabilizing, but now my character's losing his goddamn mind. He's going crazy. And I'm like, no, that's it. For me, that is too much. So I appreciated the fact that you don't have to worry too much about the survival aspects. You can just play it. And I thought that it was interesting that, like, for instance, back in the original Demon Souls, you couldn't do this, but in Dark Souls and subsequent games, you basically carry your whole inventory on your character. You have like a million different weapons and whatnot. You can't do that in Outward. You can only carry, you have to make sure that you carry as little as possible. And so that when you go on adventure, because your character is just another guy. You're not super powerful. You try to take on something that's a little bit more powerful than you, it's going to kill you. So yeah, Outward was definitely something that I enjoyed a lot.
I think the reason that you probably didn't like Don't Starve, and probably the reason I wouldn't, is like those gauges and all that stuff, that's the gameplay. Like that's the fun of the game, managing all that stuff. But for something like Outward, that's not the gameplay. That's flavor. Like that's there to slow you down and make you enjoy the journey. You have to master those elements, but those elements aren't the point. The point is fun combat and the journey, those things just allow you to get to it. This is why I say inconveniences are like a choice, like that developers use, that I respect.
Like imagine having to explain to players that you have to go out of the city and then you have to go back into the city a short while after. You can't just like keep adventuring, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of players that wouldn't really appreciate that all that much. But so Outward was your start into content creation. You made a video about Outward, and then what did you do after you did Outward?
So I made a couple of videos about Outward, and then I wasn't really planning on being a YouTuber. Just made a couple of videos about Outward, and then I was like, well, I'll make a couple of guide videos, and those took off. And then I was like, well, I'm playing Sunbreak, and it's during the demo time, and I know more about the longsword than I see on
Sunbreak.
Sorry, Rise, Base Rise, the base Rise demo.
Oh, so you didn't create content for World?
No, didn't get any content making until Rise demos was around, and so I made like a couple of longsword tutorials because there was nobody. It was demo time, like nobody was making tutorials back then, and I pretty much figured every like nuance about the longsword.
I did some tutorial. Yeah, I did. I did
during the demo.
I called it like weapon showcases because I didn't want it to call them weapon guides because I don't know how this weapon's going to change. I was like, okay, here's the moveset of this weapon. Here's how it works. That was basically it.
Okay, well, what the reason I was saying that nobody did that is because mine were very in depth. Like they explained all the little nuances that people didn't really even know until like far into the game's like life cycle. Nobody was covering the stuff that I was covering. All the little places where you can sheath your weapon and how many times you can EI Spirit Slash into things. Very in-depth guides. So those were pretty popular. And then I just started talking about Monster Hunter commentary, how I felt about World, how I thought Rise was going to turn out. I actually thought Rise was going to turn out great. I thought it was going to be better than World. I made like a lot of predictions that it was going to be hard. It's going to be better than World. Completely wrong about all of that.
Yeah, that didn't really work out.
And those took off. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if this continues, like maybe I want to make some content about Elden Ring if it ever comes out.
Yeah.
So that's all. That always was in the back of my mind. I was always prepping for that, just like slowly. It's like I'll keep making Monster Hunter content, but like one day if Elden Ring gets announced or released, I'm going to shift heavy into that. And it did, and it worked pretty well for me. Because,
yeah, like your Elden Ring videos just like took off like nobody's business. I would see them in my feed and I was like, damn, dude, look at the amount of views Ratatoskr is getting on Elden Ring. Holy crap. That was impressive. And the thing is, like, you were tackling topics that I wouldn't even think about, but I thought that they were tremendously interesting. Like how you were talking about, I don't remember if it was the Golden Sentinel that was supposed to be your teacher or the other one, whatchamacallit, the first one, I forget his name. I'm terrible with names. I'm so bad with names. Jesus.
The Golden Sentinel guy.
No. So there's the Tree Sentinel, and then the other one is the guy with the staff.
Agil? Margit.
Gee, Margit. Yes, thank you. Oh my God, I'm so bad with names. Yes, Margit the Fell. You were talking about how Margit the Fell was supposed to teach you that, like this isn't the Dark Souls that you're used to, or something like that. And
Yes.
I thought that was definitely a lot of interesting topics.
Yeah, I was surprised. The thing is, like, I had talked to a lot of Souls creators, and I was like, "What are you guys gonna do when Elden Ring?" 'Cause, like, it's been so long. Like, we've been just covering the lead up, and my lead up content was pretty impressive in terms of views too. Like, I had a video about how the Wretch was a class that you should start with, and like, it was everywhere. It was all over the place. It got like 600,000 views or something very quickly. And then, like, I saw memes of people like people online going to the Reg class and all the other classes being lonely by themselves. It was great. I was like, oh my God, like, my content's doing so well. Then I was like, what am I going to do when the game comes out? Like, God, I was like, I feel like everybody was nervous. Like, nobody knew what to do. But I was like, I got to keep going. So I started talking about Agil and Margit and bosses and my personal feelings on certain topics. And they just, they kept doing really well. I'm very grateful to the Souls community, especially the content creators that came to my podcast, because at the time I didn't really have any content out yet, and they came and talked to me, so I thought that was nice.
You never invited me. I'm offended. You probably didn't even know I did Souls back then, I would imagine.
I didn't. No, I didn't know you did Souls at all. I thought you only did Monster Hunter. I had only seen it.
I actually started with Souls on this channel. It was it was the very first thing that I did, because Demon Souls never really took off. Like, I don't remember if I made a full playthrough of Demon Souls before Dark Souls came out or not, but I remember, like, a lot of people didn't like Demon Souls. I think I remember a G4 TV review back in the day where Adam Sessler said something like, Demon Souls gets a 2 needless deaths out of 4. And I was like, bro, what? I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Game's amazing. But, later down the line, obviously, I was vindicated, because it became obviously a cult classic and whatnot. But when Dark Souls came out, I started telling people about Demon Souls and introducing them to it. Again, I was making videos for TGN, like the multi-channel network. And so one of the things that I did was like, okay, here's Phalanx. This is your initiation. This teaches you what a boss is like and whatnot. Here's Boletaria. Here's what a level looks like in a Souls-like game. Like, really rudimentary content, just trying to showcase people what it was like. And then when Dark Souls came out, I played the whole thing, and I would explain to people. The basis of my content was always like, people are going to tell you this is super hard. It's not. They are 1,000% wrong. Anybody who tells you this is hard, they just want to, like, validate their own achievements in the game or something. The game is not hard, but people would kept saying it. And then obviously, eventually from, not from Software, Bandai Namco played into it. It's like, oh yeah, prepare to die. All of this, right? But ultimately the games are not that hard. And anyone who thinks that Dark Souls is hard is like, I think Dark Souls is very easy. The thing is, you just have to respect the rules of the game. That's pretty much it.
Right. That's exactly it. I really, like, just to go back to, I got obsessed with Souls, like, after my initial, like, not liking it. There was something about it that, like, called me in. Like, it took me 3 or 4 days. Like, I would go to Boletaria. I played as the barbarian, so I got, like, wrecked by everything. Had no armor, had the club. But something about it drew me in the next day. It's like, all right, let's give this one more chance.
The barbarian is the deprived, essentially, right?
Yes, it was the deprived back in the day. It just drew me in, and I kept playing, and then eventually I beat Phalanx. And when I beat Phalanx, I had gone through this Boletaria. Like, I was transfixed. Like, I was mesmerized. It wasn't just how satisfying the gameplay was, or how rewarding it was to know that you earned it, or how even the deaths felt good, because, like, that's on me. That's on me. I should have watched that corner. I knew that knight was there. I knew that red knight over at that bridge is tough. Like, this is all my fault. It wasn't just that, though. Like, the way that it was so mysterious, and the way the story was getting told, the way that the Stockpile Thomas talked, it was so well voiced, and the item descriptions, every aspect of it was, like, perfectly tailored for me. A lot of people just like certain parts of Souls games. Some people don't like the PvP. Some people don't like the online systems. Some people only like the gameplay. They don't engage with the lore. But it was like a perfect storm for me. Every single aspect on me was great. It all mixed together so well. Then I learned about invasions. And when I saw a guy like come into my world and beat me up and take like make me die, start over. Like the moment I realized that was a real person, it's like my mind exploded. It's like, oh my God, just a guy comes into my world, messes with my character. Like I got immediately interested in PvP. I got good at it. It was a magical experience to go through Souls the first time.
So I've never like been someone that engages in the PvP in terms of like actually invading other people. I like the jolly cooperation more, but I love the aspect of me potentially being invaded. And one of the most frustrating things that I have with Souls is how many hoops I have to jump through if I want to get invaded. So like for instance, in Dark Souls, in the original Dark Souls, sometimes I would do playthroughs where I would be either streaming or something like that, or because sometimes I back then I didn't have the best internet connection. So sometimes what I would do instead is I even set this up. It was like the weirdest thing, but there was this service that you could put an app on your computer that would take screenshots and share them on a website, like in real time. It would automatically take screenshots. So when I would play the game, because I couldn't stream it, I would set up this website and I would tell people, hey, I'm going to be playing here. I'm going to be in human form. Feel free to come and mess with me. Because like I would actually jump through these hoops because I want to get invaded. Now the thing is, I don't want to be getting invaded every 30 seconds, but I want to know that the potential is there. I like the adrenaline of me potentially being invaded. And I was super disappointed with the way that they did it in Elden Ring. I even made a video about it because basically the way that it works is there's not really a chance of you being invaded. When you trigger the thing, it's basically you telling someone, come invade me now. It just grabs someone that's in the pool. It's not really an invasion because like I can predict, I can see it coming. Like I'm going to use this item and I'm going to be invaded. And I don't want that. I want the invasion to be dynamic. I want to actually be, and some people are like, oh, I don't want that. And it's like, well, tell you what, you can unplug your console from the internet and you're never going to be invaded in your whole life. And problem solved. But I really hate the fact that you have to jump through so many hoops to actually get invaded, and people still complain about it. It's like, I want the dynamic of me potentially getting invaded, and I don't know if the people that's invading me is going to be an honorable person that wants to do a duel, or if he's going to be an asshole. Because there's that dynamic. It's you don't know what you're going to get. And I don't have a particular preference. Like, I'll take them both. And if I die, I die. Like, and I'm not even good at PvP. I'm not. I don't care. I just like the adrenaline because I like the system. And the original Dark Souls, like, I think you had a cooldown timer. So whenever you got invaded, unless you used the dried finger ring or whatever it was. No, it's not the finger ring. It's dried ring. It was dried finger. Finger. So unless you use that to reset it, there would be a cooldown. So it's not like, okay, so I got invaded. Now I got killed. I lost some progress, but I got like 5 or 10 minutes or whatever that nobody's going to mess with me. So I can keep playing and eventually I'm going to get invaded again. And if I don't want to get invaded for some reason, if I don't feel like doing that, I can unplug the thing and boom, done. But people are just so complicated. They will not try out something new. They're like, oh, someone's going to invade me and they're going to stomp me. And it's a video game. Who cares? That's part of the fun.
I agree with you. Like, I agree with you completely. It's bad because it affects like me. Like it affects, I want to get invaded. If I wanted to go duel people, I would go duel people. Like I'd put my summon sign down and Rhea Lucaria or whatever, and I'd go duel. I'm looking to not know when I'm going to get invaded. I'm looking to be like fighting a tough enemy, and then I see that invasion sign at the bottom of the screen. And then I'm like, oh shit, I have to beat this enemy really quickly, or I'm gonna get messed up. And then not know where he is, and then maybe he decides to come straight at me. Maybe he decides to hide in a corner and wait for a perfect opportunity for his YouTube montage reel. You know, like hit me with a dragon arrow off of a ledge or something. Like whatever it is, it's gonna be an enjoyable experience for me. If I die, that's fine. I want to get messed up, like especially when I'm thinking about it first playthrough wise, I only get that first playthrough one time. So the longer it takes me to finish the game, the better, in my opinion. So if these guys send me back to the start of the last Site of Grace, the last bonfire, they've done me a favor. They've done me a service.
You get to play longer. Now the reason I traditionally don't do a first playthrough online But that's because I wish there was an additional option in the game. And that the reasoning is I would love to get invaded on a first playthrough. The problem is there's going to be messages everywhere spoiling every single surprise because I'm not going to be playing as fast as everybody else because I'm going to be recording. I record the full first playthrough experience because people ask me to do that. So I always record the first playthrough. And it's like getting spoiled to potential traps and stuff like that. Like even if I don't go to read the message, but I see like just a clump of blood messages, I'm like, okay, there's something bad that's going to happen there. And I already know. And I don't want that. So that's why I usually do the first playthrough completely offline because I would love it if there's an option like turn off blood pools, turn off messages, enable invasions. That would be the perfect playthrough experience for me. But because I can't do that, I'm like, okay, I guess I'll sacrifice invasions in order to not get spoiled the things that might happen. Because that way, when something does happen, it's always a surprise. I'm like, oh crap, something fell from the ceiling, got me, and now I'm dead. If you see a million blood pools there, you would know that is going to happen, and you're going to go in with your shield up and like all turtling up and looking at every single angle and whatnot. So, but yeah, every person is going to have like a different first-time experience.
Going back to the invasion thing, I've given a lot of thought about this, and I talked to a YouTuber that on a podcast, and he's like, I think the reason people have so much trouble with invasions, they don't want to engage with them, it's because it puts them in a situation they didn't ask for. It puts them in a situation where they're in a hierarchy, like they're put into a competitive hierarchy, and if you lose to a person, there's like this knowledge that person is satisfied. Like there's this knowledge that he's happy that he beat you. And like, it's especially worse if they're an asshole about it. Like they do the point down emote. They do, they throw a dung pie on the ground, do the whole thing. I've seen people get livid when someone does that to them.
Why?
I've seen people just lose their mind when that happens to them. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It has put you into this hierarchy. But the thing is, like people say things like, Souls is a primarily single-player game. And in a way, that's not really true, because it's always, like, this multiplayer feature has always been part of Souls.
Yes.
Like, from the very beginning. It's never been removed. Like, this isn't something that was tacked on. This is something that's built from the ground up to be a part of the game. And people are like, I just want to co-op with my friends. Too bad. Too bad. That's not the kind of game that Miyazaki was trying to make. If you want to just co-op with your friends without getting invaded, you're not trying to play Elden Ring. You're trying to play something else.
Yep.
And I promise you, if Miyazaki were to acquiesce and take invasions out, he'd take co-op out too. He's not going to do that. Like if he really just wanted to make a game with no invasions, co-op would be removed completely. You'd have another Sekiro type game, or a game that like Sekiro had only a single player. He's not going to take the invasions out because the invasions are his way of balancing co-op.
Yeah, pretty much, because when you do co-op, you're extremely overpowered. Like just having two players there. I've never felt like boss fights have been particularly challenging with when there's more than one player there, because it's a completely different game. As a matter of fact, I'm actually curious, where do you stand on summons?
Well, I'm perfectly fine with summons. I just don't use them myself. Like, especially not first playthrough. Like I'll play with a friend or something, and they'll summon me and stuff. But like if I'm doing my first playthrough is sacred.
I was talking about spirit summons, not like player summons.
Oh, I also generally don't use them. Maybe I'll use them like in certain situations, but like not because I absolutely have to, just because I want to see what they do, like in little encampments, but like almost never in bosses.
I use them in some bosses. Like, dude, I went
into
the dual Crucible Knights. I was like, nah. There's this hawk here. I didn't even knew which summons were good because I don't look up any of the information. I want to go in completely blind, which is hard because people will actually just like plaster stuff on thumbnails and stuff, which is why like you look at my thumbnails and it's like a picture of my character with an axe, and that's it. That's the thumbnail for the entire show. It's terrible for search rankings and all of that, but I will never want to spoil something for somebody else. It's completely atrocious. So I'm going in and I see the Crucible Knights and I'm like, I don't know which summons are good. I heard people say that Mimic was broken, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to use Mimic because that's supposedly broken. So I look through my summon list like, oh, there's a hawk here. This has to be like weak, right? This hawk's not going to do much. So I just buff up the hawk as much as I could so that I wouldn't die in one hit. And it just acted as a distraction. Like, it's not dealing any damage. It's not really doing anything. So like, here's the distraction. The other knight's over there fighting the hawk, eventually kills it. I killed the other knight in the meantime. Boom, done. And I don't care. I really don't care. It's like,
I have to assume that the Crucible Knight, the dual Crucible Knights, and the Godskin, I have to assume that you were supposed to use summon signs on those. Like, I just don't see that. Well, there's like this discussion. It's like, what's intended? Well, obviously everything's intended. Whatever you do is intended.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's part of the game. But like, it's also the case that the bosses are designed around a solo person. You know, like their moveset are like, you take something like Moog or something, or Margit. They're clearly designed for a single player, to track a single player, to trip them up. And if you add another player or another NPC in there, they're much easier because their attention is divided and they're not designed for multiple people. You know, especially when they don't have a bunch of AoEs to get you off of them. So it's clear that they are trying to give people that are a solo player a good experience. Margit is designed that way. Moog is designed that way. A lot of them are designed that way. Whatever. My point is, I don't see that being the case for like the Godskin Apostles. It's like,
see, that's the thing. The Godskin Apostles, I messed them up.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I went in. I don't remember
solo?
what. Yeah, solo, completely solo.
Wow.
No summons, no nothing. See, the way that I did it was I kind of played it kind of the way that you would do Smough and Ornstein. I tried separating them using the columns, but then I would just like went in and I tried to beat them as hard as I could, like super fast, like full burst. I was strength build, 2 really big hammers. I don't remember exactly which ones it was, but I had 2 really big hammers, and I'm like, I'm gonna jump on you and kill you like as fast as I possibly can. So I killed one of them. I don't remember exactly which one it was. So I remember the other one goes into like an animation lock or something, trying to do something. I'm like, as he's doing that, I'm like, bam, 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 bam. By the time he's done summoning the other one, I kill him. So then I go after the other one, kill him again, because they keep respawning. They don't stop.
Yeah.
So I'm just like killing them one at a time until the bar goes down. And I'm like, I don't care. I killed them and I didn't use summons on those. But I don't think that there's a problem with people using summons, because I think everybody is going to, you know, they're going to establish the level of difficulty that is acceptable to them. And that's why I'm like, these games aren't hard. You get to choose your own difficulty and it's organic, which is something that I love. Like, I hate when video games have like, okay, here's normal mode, here's easy mode, normal mode, hard mode, because the problem with those games is that people always balance for normal. Normal is going to be balanced, and unfortunately the balance that they do ends up being easy for someone that's looking for a little bit more challenging. And when you jump into hard, the HP pools are going to be so goddamn bloated that it's like, it's not really harder, it's just more tedious. It's just more boring. And so most of the games that have multiple difficulties never give me an adequate level of challenge that I'm happy with. Like, I even got to one, which was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that I don't think the developers even bothered testing the hardest difficulty, because I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go in hardest difficulty, because I went into an enemy, I backstabbed them, and they didn't even react to me backstabbing them. They just took like a little bit of damage, and there was no animation, no reaction, and then suddenly they would just turn around and start fighting me. And I was like, what is this? Like, I mean, come on, man. There was actually one, in one of my videos, I recorded this, okay? The enemy is sleeping. There's an animation that my character would do where he would stab the sleeping enemy through the chest with a spear, and then pull it out the other side through the enemy's back, and the dude just kept on sleeping. I was like, what is this? I mean, come on, man. What is going on? It's so dumb. So it's like,
that really is the advantage of having one difficulty level. You can balance it for one thing. The thing is, it's like, I've gotten a lot of flack for saying stuff like this, but it's like, there's a difference between me recommending, like I said, I like the dynamic that happens. Like, there's a dance, kind of like in Monster Hunter, where you learn the monster's moveset, you learn the boss's moveset, and you have to deal with it like solo with melee, okay? And that dynamic doesn't exist if you use summons. Like, it doesn't exist, at least not to the same degree. Like, you don't feel that flow. And I appreciate that flow. I think that flow is awesome and important. One of the best things about Souls games and Elden Ring. And I feel like you're getting that flow a lot less or not at all if you're using summons, especially something like the Mimic tier. So I'm like, you can use the Mimic tier. You can use the summons. You can use whatever overpowered. You can look everything up if you want, but I recommend you don't. That's not a like I'm not looking down on you. I'm trying to help you.
Yeah,
I want you to like these games.
Some people get offended when they're like, "Oh, you're trying to say that, I played the game wrong or something." It's like, no,
Right.
there's going to be different opinions. Now, one of the counter arguments that I always like to bring up when spirits comes along, because some people are like, okay, spirits are not intended. I even made a video saying using spirits is fine. If you want to use spirits, it's whatever. The way that I played the game was like, I will not use spirits until I reach a point where I'm like, okay, this fight, I'm going to end up hating doing this. I'm going to pull a spirit and it's going to be whatever. Right? That's the way that I played it. And again, the counter argument that I always make is like, okay, so because there's a lot of people that will always say, no, you should never use spirits. Spirits is garbage tier player if you use spirits. I'm like, okay, so you don't use spirits. So what about using blood? Can you use bleeding weapons? I mean, you can pretty much nullify a lot of mechanics using bleeding and freezing weapons. Like I made on my New Game Plus, I went in with a fingerprint shield and I put frost on it, and there's that move that does like multiple hits. I forget what the name of it is. So I just went up to Margit and I basically two-shot it. And I'm like, so is this fair? Like, I'm just trying to get a baseline here. Because, like, Margit didn't even move. I just literally advanced on him and he's dead. He can't even do anything. So what's more fair? Somebody using a spirit or me just, like, brutalizing the boss using these overpowered mechanics? Or, some mages would come up with the cerulean flask mixed in with whatever extreme version of Comet Azure. I don't know which one's the most powerful because I don't really play mage, right? And you'd basically stagger the bosses to death with a massive Kamehameha. There's like, and then they die and they don't do anything and you skip all of the mechanics. But somehow, in the minds of a lot of these players, that's fine. But somebody using a summon is completely unacceptable. And I'm just like, I mean, come on.
Well, it's like you said. Like, I think you're completely right. You choose your difficulty. Yeah. Like if you use a spirit and you feel dirty about it, you feel like you've missed out on something. Like you use a spirit on a boss, then maybe you should consider not doing it.
Yeah.
If you feel fine about it, then keep more power to you. Keep using the spirit. It's not. I just get a little annoyed when people think that I'm being judgy or I'm judging them when I do a recommendation. When I notice that maybe you would like this game more if you did this stuff. This is how I like to play it. I've played a lot of different ways. This is the one I found most enjoyable. It's a recommendation. It's advice. Maybe it's unsolicited advice. Maybe you don't want the advice, but it's out there now. So you can take it or leave it if you want to. And for me personally, like, I don't even mind overpowered stuff. Like, most important to me is when I'm going through a first time, not to get spoiled on anything. I don't like looking at guides. I don't like looking at overpowered builds. If I happen upon something that's overpowered, then that's on me. I discovered it, So, like, it feels great. Like, oh, man, this weapon is so amazing. It's so much fun to use. I'm, like, melting stuff. So there's an appeal to that. And it feels way better if you feel like you discovered it. Because you did. You didn't look anything up. So most important to me isn't not to use broken stuff or not to use summons. Most important to me is to go in blind and have fun.
Yeah. So let me tell you a story about how I got a lot of people upset at me because, I'll tell you why they're upset at me afterwards. But so this story was, I was trying to get a friend of mine into Dark Souls and we were both working for TGN at the time. So I was like, hey, how about we do a series where you stream your gameplay footage to me through like Skype so that you can stream it both for the audience that is watching and to me so that I can see it in real time without the stream delay. And I'm not going to tell you like where to go unless like I see that you're completely lost. I might aim you in a general direction or something like that. But I'm not going to guide you in any way. I'm not going to tell you like which stats to invest in. I'm not going to tell you anything. What I will tell you is how every single mechanic works. Like, here's how blocking works. Here's how you can run. Here's how you can parry. Like, I would teach him all of those things, but nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's what happened. My friend wandered into the forest. And as he wandered into the forest, he started descending down that path that goes into the Valley of Drakes. And it's at the bottom of that path. There's like a certain Black Knight there.
Yeah.
So my friend is like, oh, I'm going to kill this Black Knight. I think he was even super undergeared, but, I taught him how backstabs work. So it was like, it would like backstab cheese the Black Knight. So he blackstab cheeses the Black Knight. What happens? The Black Knight just so happens to drop the Black Knight halberd, which he referred to called the Guan Yu or whatever. It's like some reference to some Dynasty Warriors nonsense. And so we continue playing the game and whatnot. And he's having a much easier time now that he has the Black Knight halberd. Now, people are already somewhat upset. They're like, Rurikhan, tell him not to use the halberd. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, he found a weapon. Why am I going to tell him not to use the weapon he just found? So people are mad. They're already mad. But what happens next? So my friend doesn't know about Smough and Ornstein. He doesn't know anything about the game. Mm-hmm. So we get to Anne Orlando. We get the Smough and Ornstein. What happens next is hilarious. So he walks through the thing. He sees both of them. And he's like, oh, I heard about these two guys. This is like one of the hardest bosses, right? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything, man. I don't know. You deal with it. And so Ornstein does his traditional like lunge forward, instantly separating himself from Smough. My friend picks up the halberd with two hands. Slam, slam, stagger, slam, slam, stagger, slam,
oh my God.
Slam, dead.
Oh no.
And the chat exploded. Everybody is mad. They are so pissed off. I am laughing my ass off because I struggled the first time that I did Smough and Ornstein. I died like a million times. I had no idea what I was doing. My friend goes in there just like, because my friend also is good at video games, right? It's important to say. He's not like just some idiot that doesn't know how to play video games. He's good. So he recognizes the power of the weapon. So he went in the second he had an opening on Ornstein. He's like, slam, 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 boom, done. Ornstein comes out and we're both laughing so much that he almost dies to Ornstein just because he's laughing from looking at chat and everybody's being like super tilted. Just laughing. And then eventually he kills Smough as well. First time killing everybody's like, I can't believe this. Like, this is stupid. Like, you ruined the run. You ruined this first Dark Souls experience. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're having the best time in the world.
You didn't really do anything.
Yeah,
it's like you didn't put that halberd in his hands. You didn't tell him to use it or not use them.
I said, I did not guide him to do anything. I just explained how the mechanics worked. And every now and then, if he would get lost, I'd be like, try going in that general direction. And then he would
He got lucky.
Yeah.
It happens.
He got very
happened.
lucky.
The funny thing is, I probably would have been, if I was in chat, I would have been hurling abuse. I would have been just like losing it.
Stuff as well.
I would have been hurling abuse. But it's like, it's obviously not your fault. But it was just, first of all, it'd be funny. So it's just part of the meme. It's like, but then on top of that, like I see like, people see like their cherished Ornstein. People love Ornstein and Smough. Yeah. They adore Ornstein and Smough. They see their precious Ornstein getting just absolutely wrecked by someone that's never done it before. They get livid. They're going to lose their shit.
That was so fun. Like that was like an amazing moment for me in Souls. It's just fun, but people just get mad over it. It's whatever. But I wanted to touch up on another point that you brought up. You don't like going over guides, and that's like a problem that I feel exists right now in gaming. And that is that people are constantly looking for guides, even if it spoils them. Like I did a starter guide for Elden Ring, which includes footage of like a little bit of Limgrave, where I tell people about specific mechanics, how to equip Arts of War, because it's a completely new thing. We didn't have Arts of War before, right? I explained to them like, oh, this also changes the scaling of your weapon and all of these things. So look for different Arts of War. They can complement your playstyle. Here's how you cast the Arts of War. Here's useful things. Like I gave a bunch of tips without actually showing almost anything of the game. I think I showed the position of where the vendor is for the very first guy that you find. I mean, everybody runs into that guy. I think it's very hard to miss him. Bernal, yeah. So I show where he was just in case, like, hey, if you want to get like a couple of early arts, whatever, there's a dude here. You can come and you can get these arts, whatever. And but most people will actually go and they will go out of their way to spoil themselves, to look for overpowered builds. Like I seem to remember that very early on, as I was still making my journey, everybody was talking about the stupid magic katana that would delete everything and stagger bosses to death. I forget what the name of that katana even was.
Moonveil.
Yeah, the Moonveil katana. And I felt like most people were already using Moonveil Katana because everybody knew that it was broken and how to access it like reasonably fast and whatnot. And how do you feel about it? Like people just constantly spoiling themselves and destroying kind of the experience of discovery for themselves.
I think they shouldn't do it. Like this is why I say it's advice. Obviously, you have the right to do it, but you have you have the right to do a lot of things I don't want you to do. I also have the right to think that it's not good, like that you're harming yourself. Like Miyazaki himself has said in one of the interviews, where it's like try and go in blind. We would like you to go in blind. We made this game for you. It's tailored for a blind playthrough. You find the Moonveil Katana and you use it. It means a lot more to you if you found it and you use it. It's not. It means a lot less if you see it on somebody's guide and you go over to the thing and grab it, and then the rest of the game is easy for you because you got the Moonveil Katana. It's a lot better if you find it organically, because in that way you're unlikely to have it in the beginning. You're unlikely to It's crazy because like when I was talking about my design videos, I was talking about Agil and Margit and other stuff. I was talking about them like from a developer perspective. Like what does the developer want you to learn from these experiences? And it's just my speculation. It's obviously my speculation on what I think was going through their minds when they were designing them in that way. And then I'd get comments talking about like, why don't you just go get the rotten dog from Kaled and use that summon and just immediately delete Margit, why don't you just do this or that you wouldn't do because you wouldn't know about it because you hadn't happened upon it. Yeah. The only way you would know about it is if you looked up videos on it. It's like, I'll tell you why, because at the time when I was making those videos, I was still going through the game. I was playing very slowly. So I don't know about the fucking rotten dog. I don't know about any of the things that you're talking about. I'm just giving my perspective as a player, going through these things. And I think my experience was better for it. And people don't like to hear that someone thinks that they had a better experience than you. Like that's my opinion. I think that my experience would have been worse if I had looked things up. So like by default, of course, I'm saying that it's better than yours if you looked everything up and tried to do that. It's an unfortunate consequence of just like basic logic. But no, I stick by my guns. I think people would have a better experience if they just went in blind. I think what happened to my friend in Dark Souls 2, he looked up stuff because he was having a tough time. He had a tough time. He looked things up. He got some overpowered weapon or something, some overpowered stuff, breezed through like half the game, put it down, didn't finish it. Yeah. And so then like when Dark Souls 3 came out, I'm like, please just play Dark Souls 3, but let me like be there in the room with you, kind of like you were with your friend. And I'll like explain stuff to you, but I'm not gonna spoil anything, and you're not looking anything up. I'll just be in the room and I'll watch you play. And I like doing that because I can get their enjoyment through proxy. It's like doing it for the first time myself. It's like it's a great feeling. So then he plays Dark Souls 3 and he loves it. Like he's getting messed up, but he loves it, and he loves it so much he finishes it and he goes back and beats Dark Souls 2. That really was the problem. Some people have that problem. It's fine that some people don't care about spoilers, don't care about that stuff. They just want to feel like overpowered people. Fine. But you can't deny, like that's evidence right there. There are some people who will enjoy the game less if they play like that. And I think that some people is actually the majority. Like the majority would like it more if they play it. It's how they were designed. It's what Miyazaki recommends. So it's what I recommend.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's actually something that bothers me a lot. Like when people spoil themselves and then and it's just really weird to me because I cannot even fathom like when I do my playthroughs and I'll upload them, I don't expect people to be following along. And I get comments of people saying, "Oh, you're going to this area? Okay, I'll come back to this video later." Right? They'll see which areas I'm going to. They'll be like, "Okay, if you're going here, I'll come back later once I go through that myself." And I think that is a much more healthy approach, because what ends up happening a lot of times in some video games nowadays is people will spoil everything for themselves, and then they'll be like, "Oh, game has no content, dead game." So like they'll spoil the experience, and then when you get to the end, it's like, "Oh, there's no content. I did everything already." I think this actually comes a lot from MMOs, people playing MMOs, because in MMOs, a lot of times you end up looking up information because it's very hard to find certain more obscure things, and people just ended up getting into that habit. I particularly think that this might even originate from World of Warcraft, as someone who played tons of World of Warcraft. Like people end up getting into the habit of just looking things up, finding out things to be more efficient. And they forget at some point that like this shouldn't be about efficiency. This should be about you having fun. Like there were people buying runes on eBay. I'm not sure if you were aware of this.
Oh yeah.
When I noticed that, I was like, oh my God, what is, because the worst part is that if they're, because we're not talking about one person, because I was looking up, I think I was looking at, for like a Christmas gift for a friend. I Googled like, not Googled, I eBayed the term Elden Ring because I was trying to like maybe see if I could find some discounted statue or something like that I could buy for a friend of mine. And so I put Elden Ring in there and I see like rune farming services. And I was like, wait, what? And people selling like items like the Moonveil Katana kit and whatnot. Like,
yeah.
Well, because the thing is, if it's one vendor, then you're like, okay, this guy's trying to shoot a shot. Like you're talking like at least 20 different vendors all doing the same thing. And so
it must be profitable. So
yeah,
it has to be working.
So there's a bunch of people actually buying it. So I made a video talking about like, please don't do this. Like, what are you doing? It's not even hard to get runes in this game. Like you can literally just start farming stuff. And people tell me, well, I don't have time to farm runes. This way I was able to just like buy runes. And I was like, oh.
Wow, you got people in your comments defending themselves?
Yes.
I think maybe that's amazing.
The thing is like certain videos reach beyond your own subscriber base and you just get like random people in, right? I don't expect most of my subscriber base to do it. But yeah, there were people that will go in there and they'll be like, oh yeah, I bought some runes and it was great because then I got to, spend more time with my son and whatnot. It's like, well, I mean, if you want to spend time with your son, take a break from the game.
Just go spend time with your son.
Yeah, exactly.
This line of argumentation has always baffled me. It's strange. It's like, they'll say something like, not all of us have all day to play video games. And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean? Like, it's like, I only have 3 hours a day to play video games. Okay. Play Elden Ring for 3 hours.
Yeah, and then
get
stop
to where you're going to get to in those 3 hours. And then stop. Go do the things that you're going to do for the rest of your day and come back tomorrow and play another 3 hours. The game's not going anywhere. What do you mean that you don't have time to like play? It amazes me that people will spend money to not play the game that they bought.
Yeah, it is impressive. Like it always astounds me. And here's the thing, I guarantee you we'll probably get like 1 or 2 comments in here if somebody watches all the way here of some people that will actually say that like, oh no, this is an important service. Because I talk about this for multiple video games and people will say, no, this is an important service for me because I get to enjoy the game at my own pace. And I'm like, would you enjoy the game at your, what do you mean? You should be enjoying the game at your own pace. You don't need to be at end. Are you rushing to the end game of Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
It's this crazy idea. It's like,
if you're not at end game, you're not playing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the journey is part of the enjoyment. Yeah. Like getting stuck is part of the enjoyment. If you're not enjoying that, you might as well go play something else. Really. Like you might as well go play something that you do enjoy because like, it's almost certain that these runes and stuff is not going to, it's not worth it. Like so you get overpowered, you get to level 700, whatever. And now you get to be 700 and you bully the bosses and you get through the game. Is there some kind of, maybe it's some kind of completionist mindset. Like they want to, well, I have to get through Elden Ring because I need to play, I don't know, God of War next week, so I got a week to get through it. That's not a mindset I understand. Like I can't.
That's the other thing. Like, yeah, God of War is not going anywhere either. As a matter of fact, if you spend long enough in Elden Ring, you might be able to get God of War on a discount.
Right. Exactly. No, yeah.
The only thing where this doesn't apply is if someone wants to play like some kind of an online game because those have like a different life cycle. That's a little bit different. But even in online games, like I still feel you need to enjoy yourself. You can't just be like, no, I want to boost through everything, get the end game. Because a lot of times people then just get the end game. And it's like, oh, there's nothing to do at end game. Like a lot of people burned through Rise at breakneck pace, got to the end. It's like, there's no end game. Like, well, yeah, maybe you should have taken your time.
Yeah.
It's like, then you wouldn't be worrying about like, is there end game? Is there not end game? It's a little bit weird.
Did you get any of those emails from people asking you to like promote their rune selling service?
Oh yeah, tons of them.
I got tons of them. I got so many. I kept blocking them, but didn't help.
Oh no,
Tons of offers.
there were tons of offers, and I've seen a couple of like really high profile content creators like shill for that, and it's like, hey man, I get it, you got to pay the bills, it is what it is, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of those guys were offering a lot of money, but it's like I'm blessed enough to where living in Portugal, the cost of life here is significantly cheaper than like living in America, so I don't have to do any of that stuff, at least not until this point, but it's just like it's so bad. Like, oh yeah, let me just talk about this rune selling service. Boost yourself with some runes. Particularly when you know that, dude, you can just get like a mod and cheat runes into the game if that's what you want to do, and it's free. Why are you paying money for this? I don't understand. you think the people selling you runes, they're grinding those runes?
No, they're using a mod or they glitched them or something.
I got news for you. That's not happening. So. I'm going to assume that you've played all of the Souls games, correct?
Yes.
Which one's your favorite?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, I know.
It's like making me choose between my children.
Yeah, I know.
Not Dark Souls 2. I'll start with that.
That's going to be everyone's answer, not Dark Souls 2.
I don't know which one's number one, but whatever is number one, probably Elden Ring is number two.
Okay.
I like them for different reasons. Like so Demon Souls has a special place in my heart because it was my first one, and the atmosphere that it cultivated with Boletaria specifically, like really still gets under my skin. Like I see Boletaria's like misty green castle area, castle wall, and like it does something to my soul, like it's just shaking. Obviously Dark Souls is a masterpiece. Bloodborne is on its own league, especially in atmosphere.
Yep. And
Dark Souls 3 I appreciate because it's a really fine culmination to the series, especially if you take the DLC into consideration. It's one of those.
I hated the Ringed City, dude.
Did you?
I got so much crap over the Ringed City. Like people, and here's the thing. Like you could see it on my stream that I'm not having a good time. I did not enjoy Ringed City.
What was the issue?
So I have this thing where whenever I'm playing a Souls game, I love exploring. I love taking my time with an area. Like this is why I always say whenever I do a playthrough, I'm going to be like, listen, I'm not like a Zoomer streamer. I'm not going to be running through. I'm going to explore every nook and cranny of an area. That's how I do it. And when they put the Gundam Angels in there, that triggered me so hard because there's the Gundam Angels, and then in the same like area that you're running through trying to avoid the Gundam Angels, you'll encounter these dark skeletons that keep respawning. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's two mechanics pushing me, preventing me from exploring. So that was super triggering. It really pissed me off to begin with. Then I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I run through, eventually figure out where some of the angels. I didn't even find all of the angels, like the ground bits that let you destroy it. But then I run through, I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I get to the boss. The boss is like the dual dudes. So it's a double boss. And I'm like, okay, so now I have to deal with this because double bosses are a little bit more annoying. And I'm already tilted from all the stuff that comes before. But I'm like, okay, fine. I beat the boss. Then you keep going. And then there's the archers on the bridge. That's exactly the same goddamn thing of running from cover to cover. And I'm just like, bro, at this point, I am beyond tilted. I'm just like completely through the friggin' roof. Then I get to,
what about the rest of it?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going. I'm not done. Then I get to the other boss that's supposed to be like the multiplayer boss.
Mm-hmm.
And some random naked guy shows up. I two-shot him. And I'm just like, I'm not having a good time. So then I get the Gale. And Gale was like the best part. I love the Gale fight. Like Gale fight, amazing. Even though I was super tilted, I was like, no, but this fight's really cool. So I don't remember if I beat Gale on the first stream or if I beat him on the second one or whatever. But basically the other stream, I went because people were telling me, oh, you missed this encounter. Dark Eater Madir. Bro, Dark Eater Madir, I will say this to my dying breath, it's a trash fight. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care if you like it. Dark Eater Madir is trash. And let me tell you, on my case, it was even worse. So I don't know if you remember, there were these knights that had like the antlers helmets and whatnot. So they had these like kite shields and they had an axe. So I love axes and hammers over swords. So I like their axe. So I was using their axe. And I obviously upgraded to the nth degree. So when I go fight Madir, the move set of my axe can't reach Midir's head. So basically, I'm running, I get to Midir, and I start swinging, and I can't hit him, and I was like, okay, oh my God, okay, fine. I have to go and I get another weapon, like I get a weapon that has a nice vertical cut, a big axe, and I upgrade that weapon, and then I go do the fight, and that fight, at least to me, I don't know if they've patched, because I've heard people praise that fight to no end, which makes me wonder if they've patched it since I've been there, because I never went back. But basically the way that fight went for me is like, run all the way to where he is, hit him in the head, he teleports to a different zip code. Not teleports, he jumps to a different zip code. So then you run all the way to where he is again, hit him in the head once, and he teleports to another zip. And I'm like, bro, like, why don't you just give me like a mount or something? Like, give me the Elden Ring mount, so that at the time there wasn't Elden Ring, but like, give me the Elden Ring mount so that I can at least get there faster, because it was boring. Like, it wasn't even challenging. You're just like, you hit him in the head, and then you run across the map, and you hit him in the head again, and then you run across the map, and you repeat that until he dies.
You know, I really can't relate. I'm actually surprised that you don't like. He's my favorite. He's not my favorite. He's among my favorite boss fights, because he's the only boss fight in any Souls game that is harder with summons. If you take summons in it, you're just going to die. They're just going to mess you up, because he does so much damage that the summons are sure to die. Like before he gets halfway through the fight, they're like guaranteed to die, and then he'll stay with that buffed up HP. So you're just there by yourself dealing with way more HP than you should. But he was like a Monster Hunter monster. A lot of his moves reminded me of Safi Jiva. You know, a lot of his moves reminded me of stuff like Safi Jiva.
So wait, you played Hengest City after Monster Hunter World?
No, but I did talk about Midir to like people and explaining what he was like. He also reminded me of like the Dragon from Dragon's Dogma. He's a lot like that. So I'm surprised you didn't like his moveset. He was great. He's a great fight. You're crazy.
Like him at all. Yeah, it's like that combined with that, and here's the kicker, right? Shortly after that Dark Souls DLC, there was the second DLC for Neo. I'm not sure if you ever played Neo.
Yeah, I played it.
So that DLC also had a level where they shot arrows at you, like in very much the same way that the archers on the and at that point, because I was still on tilt from the stream of Hengest City, and I jump into this DLC, and the same thing happened. Like, that stream went so bad, I was so toxic that I privated that stream. It's how bad that was. I was like, nah, I'm not even leaving that one up. And here's the thing. Back then, I still had this mentality where I'm like, no, I have to prove myself. I have to prove to people that I can do the hard content. So I was tilted beyond belief. But I was like, I'm going to beat this level out of sheer frustration, and I'm going to beat this boss, and then I'm going to uninstall this game. Like,
wow.
So I never ended up going back to either of those DLCs. Like on the Neo DLC, I played the first level, and I said, I hate this. I hate everything about this mechanic. I don't know why everyone's implementing this stupid mechanic that doesn't let me explore levels. And then... But the thing is, later when you cool your head, I was thinking to myself, like, that was actually that was very much a me thing. That's not like a design problem. That's just me having a problem with a specific mechanic, a very specific preference that really tilts me about the way that, they kind of like herd you to go super fast. And I hate going fast. I want to go slow. I want to take my time exploring, and I hate being pushed around. So yeah, that really bothered me. So I never went back to Hengest City, and I never went back to whatever the DLC that was for Neo.
Did you at least beat Gale?
Oh yeah, I beat Gale.
Okay.
And I love that fight. I thought that fight was amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I've always thought that they should mix all of the Berserk movesets that they have, and like just give me like some kind of crossover Berserk DLC. Like, I don't care if it makes sense or not. I really don't. Like, you clearly are inspired by Guts from Berserk. Like, give me a Berserk DLC fight.
It was funny because I was once in an interview with Miyazaki, and it was a group interview, so there was like two more groups there, and one of the groups asked, when are you just gonna make a Guts game? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's going on his third. It was an interview for Dark Souls 3. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the third one. Yeah.
Actually, I saw that picture for years. I've looked at that picture of you with Miyazaki doing the Praise the Sun thing, for the Dark Souls 3 thing. I've seen that thing for years, like before I played Monster Hunter, before I knew who you were. And so I've seen that picture everywhere. Like whenever I'm looking for pictures of Miyazaki to do anything with, or I'm researching.
I've seen that a lot of websites have used that picture.
Yeah.
They never credit me, interestingly enough, but yeah.
Yeah. And so you've just been there. Like I've seen your face way before I knew who you were. And then you mentioned on Twitter that you had interviewed Miyazaki or something. And then I was like, wait a minute. I saw that picture that you showed. And I was like, wait a minute, that's you. That's you. I've been looking at you for the last 10 years. I've been looking at your face doing that pose. It's like mind blowing. It's like, oh my God, that's the dream. Get big enough to one day interview Miyazaki.
I got to speak with Miyazaki. Like, here's the interesting thing. Like, I totally got the completely fanboy over Miyazaki the first time that I went to E3. Like, I met Miyazaki he was on a queue for something, and I was just going around the E3 floor, and I just randomly run into Miyazaki, and I just asked the person that's next, can you take a picture of me? Just straight up full fanboy, and Miyazaki's like, hey, and so I have another picture with him as well. He's just like a really cool guy. But
Darn.
yeah, I got to meet a lot of content creators on that one time as well. Like I met a German spy, also super nice guy. Met Peef Beaverson. Actually, dude, you know how I met Peef Beaverson the first time?
Nope.
This one is a funny story that I can't tell. So when the DLC for Prepare to Die came out, everybody was like streaming it on Twitch and stuff. So I'm streaming it, and I just beat what was it, like the very first, the White Lion thing, the Guardian something, the Sanctuary Guardian, whatever it's called.
Yes.
I beat him, and I start descending down into the place where Artorias is. And when I get down there, I get invaded. And the name of the character was Peef Beaverson. And I had no idea who he was. So I'm like, what is this, an NPC name? I mean, with a name like Peef Beaverson, this has to be an NPC. And he's dressed in like the jacket of that other NPC. Like I said, I'm terrible at names. God damn it. The NPC that has the nice
the one that looks like
coat.
Bloodborne.
Yeah. So he's dressed in that trench coat, and he has the tail of the monster that I just killed. I was like, wait a minute, he's got that's a weapon? Like the tail of the monster is like a whip. And Peef is always doing these crazy PvP builds. So we fight. He wins, and everybody in my chat keeps saying like, "Oh, it's Peef Beaverson," and I was like, I had no idea who it is, but that was like the first time that I got to know him. He's also super chill, dude. But yeah,
Was this like during when the game first came out, or like during some kind of early review?
No. When the game first came out, we didn't have early reviews back then.
Right.
The other interesting thing was like, I don't know if you remember how PvP worked in Dark Souls 2. You had the soul memory thing.
Oh, yes.
You remember that? So
yeah.
This is another funny thing. So in a presentation that I was with at that E3 thing, that Miyazaki was there, we were then allowed to like ask a couple of questions. And I was like, are we going to have soul memory for Dark Souls 3? And Miyazaki just looks at me and he goes like, soul memory does. He has no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay, I get it. All right. I see how it is.
Yeah.
He clearly
I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, he had no idea what soul memory was. And I was like, oh, okay. It's good to know. Then it's probably not. Yeah. But yeah, that's like a lot of crazy Soul stories. Souls is just like, I find the community for Souls amazing, even though there's all of these like journalists constantly saying, oh, the Souls community is so incredibly toxic. I am yet to have, like, beyond the occasional like hacker that goes in and tries to mess with your save file or break your armor with some glitch spell or something like that. Besides that, I am yet to have like an actual negative interaction with anyone from the Souls community.
I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Souls community. I don't think I've had any negative interactions either. But I will say that having come from the Monster Hunter community and then gained a decent amount of popularity in the Monster Hunter community and making videos there, and then switching to Souls people are much more harsh. Like they are way harsher and more critical than the Monster Hunter community. I could put out a video for Monster Hunter about anything, and it'd be nice. I'd get almost 99% positive comments. But Souls people are just very critical people. It seems like makes sense. It makes sense. They're a lot meaner. I was like, oh, I gotta up my game. I like it hurting my feelings. I better make sure I know what I'm talking about if I say anything.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting because with me, it's almost been the other way around. Like I've gotten sometimes harsher feedback from the Monster Hunter community. Like, you know, the occasional person that comes in where you say something and maybe what you said is not technically wrong, but maybe it's not the most meta thing possible, right? And someone will come in and it's like, I'm going to flag this video for misinformation.
Can they do that?
No, they can't, but it's funny when they say it. I've had that happen a couple times. I'm flagging you for misinformation. I was like, what the hell? Why don't you scream fake news in the comments while you're at it? Like, what the hell?
You know, I have had that also with Monster Hunter, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
The misinformation thing, I think, happens a lot, yeah.
But it was funny. It's like I wasn't wrong. Like I made a video talking about the DPS of the diving wyvern after 3 Kinsec slashes, and the whole point of the video is like, look, the damage with 3 Kinsec slashes followed by diving wyvern on a stationary monster is super high. It's probably the highest that you can get with an insect glaive. And so I compared it to other combos that were on the Monster Hunter meta Reddit. Like that was what was on the Monster Hunter meta Reddit. I didn't want to use my own combos. Like I didn't want to use what I did. Like because then I could be like, look, you can go bother them about it. That's what's on their Reddit. So I used the combos on there, and one of the combos that I used was is a suboptimal version of that combo. It was the tornado slash followed by stab. I didn't do the stab because it's hard to get the stab on the training dummy. But it didn't matter because the Tetra Seal combo, vastly outperforms it anyway. And the Tetra Seal combo could not do as much damage as, 3 Kinsec slashes followed by a diving wyvern in the same amount of time. It just couldn't. So if the much better combo couldn't do it, the obviously weaker combo wasn't going to do it anyway. So it didn't matter if that one was a little, suboptimal. The point of my video stood, and I got tons of comments being like, you didn't do the right combo, this video is misleading. I was like, bro, I'm right. Go watch it. Go watch a speed run.
You get flagged for misinformation. But yeah, it's funny. I think at the end of the day, it still ends up being like, overall, it's been, at least for me, it's been mostly positive. Like, yeah, there's the occasional negative thing that we always remember because the human brain is always like hardwired to be like, oh, got to remember the negative things more than the positive ones. But mostly you end up getting like positive stuff, I feel like.
Let me ask you a question. I didn't know that you were so heavy into the Dark Souls community until like much later watching your stuff. Was there a reason like you shifted to Monster Hunter? Because you saw, like, I also shifted heavily into Elden Ring and still do Monster Hunter content. Like, but was there a reason? Did Monster Hunter just like have more views?
No, it's never like the views was more luck. Like I was surprised I got that many views. I was extremely surprised at how well it did. I always wanted to cover Monster Hunter. Like I said, I just didn't cover it due to the games came out 1 year earlier in Japan, and then you start making content like 1 year late. What's the point? Nobody's going to watch it, right? So I never really covered it hardcore because of that. The moment like there was a global release for a Monster Hunter game, like, let me tell you, I was looking everything up. Like, okay, who do I got to talk to? Eventually, I see a Twitter post from Socks. Like, I pretty much almost harassed Socks. Like, I wasn't going to go to Gamescom that year until I found that Socks was going. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to Gamescom too. I'll be there. I'm not joking. Like, I was constantly hounding Socks, like, hey. And then when I got to Gamescom, I didn't even care about the other games that were there. I was like, hey, Socks, where are you? I need to meet you. And he's like, oh, I'm doing this thing now. I can't. Every day I would go into game, hey, Socks, like spamming his Twitter nonstop until eventually I got to meet Socks. Like that's the way that I do things. Like I find something that I want and I'm like full steam ahead. Like I'll go to GameStop. I don't give a crap. Let's go. And I was just super passionate about it. So that's why. But I never like stopped covering Souls. The thing is, I had done so many Souls videos at that point that I had covered pretty much every Souls game that they had made, and there wasn't really anything going on around Monster Hunter as far as I can remember, at least. And then eventually when Sekiro came out, I played Sekiro, and I actually regret not uploading the entire Sekiro playthrough because there was definitely a clash there because I was getting tons of views off of Monster Hunter, and then I wanted to upload a Sekiro playthrough, and the views just weren't there, and I didn't do it. But now I've said it. I'm like, I'm going to stream that thing. I don't give a crap. If there's no views, whatever. But I'm passionate about both of them pretty much, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Me too. The only reason I ask is that I was getting like these, mega views with Elden Ring, like just huge views, doing stuff. I could upload a random video and I get something like 70,000 easily at the lowest amount, like at minimum 50 to 70,000 at the lowest amount. If I was lucky, it would like the algorithm would bless me and it'd get like 500,000 views, consistently. So I was doing really well for myself there for a bit. And then I got, I just didn't want to do any more Elden Ring videos. I couldn't think of anything else to talk about the lore. The lore was confusing me. The gameplay, I just didn't want to do any PvP, which is weird because I'm a big PvP guy. I usually would have stayed with PvP much longer. For whatever reason, I didn't want to do any more Elden Ring videos. So I go back to Monster Hunter. My Monster Hunter videos are doing fine. Like they did good. But Sunbreak also, like, it passed through me very quickly. Like I enjoyed it. I had positive things to say about it, but it also went by quickly. And, until a title update comes out, like I don't have much more to say about it till we see some more stuff. So then I go back and I made an Elden Ring video. My lore videos consistently had done best on the channel. And then I upload these ones. They're the worst performing lore videos I ever had. And I was like, well, maybe the algorithm needed me to make another one. So I make another one. Again, no.
But it did better than the previous one, right?
No, it didn't even do as well as my Monster Hunter videos at that point.
No. What I mean is, like, you made 2 lore videos, right? You made video number 1, and then you're like,
Yes.
okay, so the algorithms maybe like recalibrating whatever. So you made video number 2. Video number 2 is better than number 1, right?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. See, that is the algorithm. So it's like you have to keep doing it because this is one of the biggest issues that I have with the YouTube algorithm. I even made a video about it recently, is like the YouTube algorithm, it likes to put you in a box. So like the moment you started making those Elden Ring videos and you were successful, YouTube's like, okay, Ratatoskr goes in the Elden Ring box. And then you start making Monster Hunter videos again. And the YouTube algorithm, like it's giving you some views, but probably not the level of views that you're expecting. It's like, it's doing this, like it's slapping you on the wrist like, no, get back in your Elden Ring box, what are you doing? And then because you did a couple of Monster Hunter videos, and then you try to go back to Elden Ring, and it's like, no. Now I'm placing you back in the Monster Hunter box. That's how the algorithm works, and that is the problem. So,
But, it wasn't really even that much of a problem with the Monster Hunter videos. Like, I expected them not to do as well because, Monster Hunter Sunbreak is not as big a video game as Elden Ring, especially during Elden Ring's, like, big hype moments. So I wasn't expecting that. And like, there's also the fact that Elden Ring is not as there's not as much interest now as there was during release. So it's not that surprise that my lore videos are only getting 20, 30,000 views. It was just such a stark difference. Like I uploaded and I worked so much harder on those. Like the quality of the editing was much higher than I would usually do. So then I see like I go back and look at my old videos. It's like, these are crap. Like these are crap. These old lore videos that I did. The editing is much worse.
Let me tell you about something that a friend of mine once told me and that I like to always bring up whenever these types of conversations come up. Listen, when it comes to YouTube, it doesn't matter if you're the worst, so long as you're the first. See, the timing on those was what really kicked it off. You had really good timing on those videos, and so they took off. There was also the difficulty discussion that you had that I feel like a lot of people resonated with. Which it was interesting because it's like a lot of people at the time, I remember them telling me, I think they were tagging both of us on Twitter or something saying, oh, you guys should talk about difficulty on this game. And I never reached out because I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? We're going to agree on everything.
We already agreed.
We're both making kind of the same points. So it's like, it doesn't really matter. Like I already watched the video. I agree with most of it. There's not a whole lot to say. And it was interesting because like Super Rad made like a response to your video, like a really like super response. I think I watched this video as well. I was like, yeah, I disagree with most of what you're saying. Like here, because like I said, I like looking for media that contradicts what I believe in, because I find that to be important to always question the things. It's like, could I be wrong? Could there be an argument here? And I saw the whole video. It's like, well, I still don't agree. So it's like, hey, it is what it is.
I streamed myself watching Super Red's video for the first time. My chat were not happy with Super Red, because he does Monster Hunter content. I had quite a few number of people that were subscribed to Super Red that were unsubscribed to Super Red by the end of that stream.
That makes me sad, because I love Super Red. I think it's a fantastic dude. It's just like sometimes there's going to be times where content creators are going to have a difference of opinion. Like you and I, you love Madeir. I hate Madeir. It's whatever. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Yeah. We're not going to go to a war over it. I don't think that makes sense. But people kind of they seek out that drama. They're like, oh, there's beef between Ratatoskr and Super Red. I'm like, no, I think they're just expressing their views. I don't think it matters.
No. We had nothing but pleasant interactions. The few interactions that we've had on Twitter or in private messages, only pleasant interactions.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing. People just like the drama aspect of it is also. But it does make me sad that some people unsubscribe from Super Rad over something like that. I mean, I think it's actually very healthy for creators to just voice out, hey, I don't agree with you because of this. And here's the points that I'm trying to make. And boom, and it's whatever.
Right.
But
right. Yeah. I think, that's
I was
it.
Like you were going to say something. Yeah, because I was like, we've been going on for 2 hours and we can probably keep going for 2 more, but then nobody will watch the thing all the way. I like to keep these to around this length because I think that kind of makes sense. So I'm going to be linking your channels in the description. So anybody that hasn't checked out Ratatoskr's content, you should, because I think you make really good content. I really love because I don't do scripted stuff. You do a lot of scripted stuff. Like your difficulty video, I thought this was Jesus friggin' Christ. This is awesome. I particularly like the part where you just went I don't have to have this discussion. My side's already won. And I was like,
yes, yes.
Yeah, it's dunk.
That was a fun video to make.
I was like, this is awesome. I love this. But there's going to be links to Ratatoskr stuff in the description. What are you going to be working on next, do you think?
Because I haven't learned my lesson about how the algorithm works, I'm going to be making 3 videos on Outer Wilds, a game that I like a lot.
Oh man, I keep getting recommended to play that game. I got to do that.
You really ought to. It's not that long and it's an experience, but don't look anything up about it.
Yeah, I know.
Don't go try and see. There's no game in the world that is more sensitive to spoilers than this one. Just from how it functions. A spoiler in this would hurt more than a spoiler in something else.
But it's I think we need renegades like you and me to a certain extent, where it's well, the algorithm says this, but I'm going to do this. It's just the problem is we're going to suffer from a success standpoint most of the time due to the fact that we do that. But then at least at the end of the day, we're not going to be rage quitting because we're forced to play Minecraft for God knows all. I've seen so many people that. Because they've got massive for Minecraft and they probably can't even see a Lego block in front of them at this point. At least I don't have to suffer from that. All the things I play, I greatly enjoy.
Yeah, the way I see it is I've been blessed. The algorithm blessed me initially with the Elden Ring stuff, and it was nice to me during the Monster Hunter content that I did. I don't have any complaints. If I make a choice to cover content that I know is going to put me in bad terms with the algorithm, that's on me. I'm doing it for a reason so that I don't get burnt out. I'm doing it so that I can keep making quality content. And if other people have to suffer, playing Minecraft, even though they're done with it, they're mentally drained from it, but they can't stop because they're getting so much money from it. They've made that choice. So they're making certain sacrifices, and I'm making certain sacrifices, and I don't begrudge them their success.
Yeah, if anything, I always like to say I want creators to be successful. I don't want anybody to be on YouTube and be struggling or anything. It's hey, just, I always bring up a lot of people always bring up, oh, you have almost 200,000 subs, you're a big creator. It's bro, look at Ratatoskr's Elden. How many subs do you have?
92,000.
Oh, that's much bigger than last time I checked. But still,
it grew a lot.
look at Ratatoskr's videos getting way more views than anything that I could do, and that is because there is a decent amount of discoverability in this algorithm if you manage to break through. But I'm always happy to see creators make more and more views. That's good. It's good for everybody. Who cares?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's going to be it for this podcast, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this, feedback, all of that jazz. And like I said, if Gaijin eventually gets tired of Final Fantasy 14 and wants to come back and do Third Fleet podcast again, I'm definitely going to pester you to be a guest for sure. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.
Goodbye.